Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of The Market Open. We are here today once again. It is Tuesday, February 4th, 8:47 a.m. And, well, there's a lot of things I could say to start off this stream. There's a lot of emotions that I have going on right now. I didn't get a ton of sleep last night, as I'm sure a lot of you guys did not get a ton of sleep at all either. Lots of emotions, lots of feelings, but it is one of those things that's hard to put into words for a guy who speaks every single day. I am still 12 hours later after this earnings call, speechless about what I saw from Palantir. Currently in the pre-markets, we are at $103.13. I didn't know triple digits would happen so quickly off the backs of an earnings. I think we all kind of expected that day that Palantir hits 100, it's going to be one of those things. It's going to be, one of those days where it just happens, and we're going to have some time to prepare for it. But if 2024 taught us anything, the run from 16 to 80 was not something you could really prepare for, and it kind of just happened as the world figured out what a lot of us had known early on in 2022 and had to bag hold in 2022 until the world figured it out. Now the world figured it out, and the world is figuring it out at a level that I don't think anyone expected they would figure it out as. Palantir, $100 a share. We hit a high of 104 in the pre-markets, 104.86. It's just incredible. It is just incredible, and still I struggle to find the words to kind of explain how this is playing out, but it is playing out. As Alex Karp said, it is happening. I want to start off the coverage. We're going to probably spend about 20 minutes on Palantir, going deep into the numbers, my thoughts, my ideas around the future of this stock, the trajectory of this company. I do think, first of all, top line, that we are going to hold 100 today. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's a ton of selling and people come in and they say, you know what, enough is enough. I'm taking my profits. But I think given the jump we saw last night, given the jump we're seeing in the pre-markets, this is going to be something that holds. And 100, at least today, I think is very possible to maintain for Palantir, along with the fact that the tariff war seems to be a nothing burger, which of course it was going to be a nothing burger, but it's a nothing burger, and the entire market's kind of getting a pump off that as well. To start off the coverage, let's listen to Alex Karp last night, CEO of Palantir, who absolutely crushed the earnings call. Like, crush is probably an understatement in terms of how this call went. And the reason he crushed it is because he had the numbers to back it up, and it's very easy to be confident when you know that you produce the results, and now all you have to do is talk about those results. Here's what he said to retail investors, all of us that have been believing in his company for the better part of 4 years now.
Thank you all. Alex, as always, we have a lot of individual investors on the line. Is there anything you'd like to say before we end the call?
We're doing it. We're doing it. And I'm sure you're enjoying this as much as I am. Let's not talk to analysts about the burden of being right. Our burdens of investing in ontology, our burdens of actually looking at the math, the burden of reading what the rule of 40 is, the burden of being honest about what an enterprise software company is, or the burden of explaining to your friends that you're really happy. Maybe we should just stop talking about it. I'm very happy to have you along for the journey, and you are partners for us. Every Palantirian, we are crushing it. Everyone else who's listening, we are dedicating our company. We have dedicated our company to the service of the West and the United States of America, and we're super proud of the role we play, especially in places we can't talk about. And we love our success in the U.S. and globally. Also, we are doing in the United Kingdom and many other places. Palantir is here to disrupt and make the institutions we partner with the very best in the world, and when it's necessary, to scare enemies and on occasion kill them. And we hope you're in favor of that. We hope you're enjoying being a partner, and we're really happy and very, very focused on what we're doing. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. That concludes Q&A for today's call.
That earnings call was
Powerful as fuck.
It was very
powerful as fuck.
For those that missed that soundbite by Karp, when he was explaining the ontology yesterday, he banged on the table at the end of his final sentence, and he said the reason we spent 20 years building this is because it is powerful as fuck. There is a level of excitement and energy that I saw in that earnings call yesterday that is hard to explain. I know Grab is up 10% as well. We're going to talk about Grab. We're going to get into all that. We just got to kind of get through all the coverage on Palantir, but we'll get into Hood, Grab. We got a lot of stuff going on in this market. We got a lot of macro stuff. We have Jolt's data today. So we got a ton of stuff to talk about today. It's going to be a long stream. But Palantir was exceptional. I mean, what else can we say? What else can we say about Palantir? I mean, it was an emotional night, guys. It was an emotional night. My sister, who I don't think I've seen her cry since like 10th grade when she broke up with her first boyfriend. She texted me yesterday, Palantir, exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark. And I'm like, let's go. And my sister says, I might cry. And the hilarious thing about the fact that this earnings call made her so emotional, probably that $20,000 she was up in 5 seconds at 4:05 p.m. made her a little bit emotional as well. She can't even spell Palantir. You got someone ready to shed tears over Alex Karp, who cannot spell the name of the company. Quite frankly, when I sent a selfie of me and Karp to her for the first time, she said, who is that? Granted, she's got a lot of money in his company and she doesn't know who the hell the CEO is. So the point is, it was such an emotional night. And I'm joking here with my sister, but I can't imagine the amount of people that are seeing life-changing amounts of money, absolutely life-changing amounts of money. She trusted me with her portfolio a year ago. I kind of begged her to just be like, let me manage it, please, because your money's stuck in Bank of America. We need to be investing it. And given she trusted me with her portfolio, I trusted in Palantir, and these are the results that we're seeing today. It was just an exceptional quarter. It was an exceptional earnings. The growth was there. I'm going to talk about valuation in a second. But the reason I think the stock is at 103 right now, and I mean, let's go through this to continue our coverage right here, and then we'll get into the actual results. The reason the stock's at 100 right now, 103, is because the street has decided they're giving up on not necessarily being bearish on the name, but being as skeptical on the name as they were before. Morgan Stanley, 60 to 95 on their price target. Jefferies, Brent Thill, the guy that despises Palantir. I mean, you could just tell the way he talks about it. He does not like this stock. He has publicly called out Alex Karp for making fun of analysts. He is not a fan of the company. This guy had to more than double his price target from 28 to 60. That's how good these earnings were. Deutsche Bank, 35 to 50. Rishi, our boy Rishi, had to capitulate on this earnings. 11 to 40. As Drago says, they must kiss the Palantir like all these big tech CEOs are kissing the ring for Trump. I mean, it is absolutely incredible. Cantor Fitzgerald, 72 to 98. Bank of America. Mariana upgraded us from 75 to 90 yesterday. She upgrades us today from 90 to 125. Mizuho, 35 to 50. Bard, 70 to 100. HSBC, 38 to 96. DA Davidson goes from 47 to 105. And then UBS went from 80 to 105 as well. I mean, it's just incredible. It's just incredible. And the reason I'm bringing all of this up is because at the end of the day, as much as CNBC and the mainstream media wants to say that retail drives this stock, the stock's up almost $35 billion in market cap. I personally am skeptical that $35 billion of money from you and I went into the stock over the past 24 hours. I think there are more wealthier people that might not be institutions, but they're definitely not your average retail investor, that are looking at these results and they're saying, yeah, we want to be part of the story, and we quite frankly have the money to invest, and we're looking for the next AI name, and they're choosing Palantir. And I think the level of upgrades we're seeing this morning is going out to all the other institutional clients that pay hundreds of thousands of dollars for research from RBC or HSBC. And as a result, they're realizing, okay, if the research we pay for says there's a $150 price target, $100 price target, then maybe we need to take this more seriously. Here's what Wedbush said as well. They raised from 90 to 120. He says, Dan Ives, there are some transformational tech stocks that come along every decade and change the landscape. Palantir is one of them, and in our view, it proved it for the tech world to see last night. Palantir posted earnings that absolutely blew away street expectations with initial 2025 guidance well ahead of street expectations. Palantir is helping lead the AI revolution into the use case phase as its AIP product mode is unmatched in our view. Karp and company are playing chess in the AI arms race while others are playing checkers, and the bears can continue to miss the generational tech story as they cannot find AI in their spreadsheets. We maintain our outperform rating while raising our price target from 90 to 120, reflecting a new paradigm ahead for the messy of AI. So you got Dan Ives, who's pretty damn excited about how this story is playing out. A couple other quotes from some of the other analysts outside of Dan Ives. So Morgan Stanley said, given the strength of the outlook, we acknowledge that we were wrong about our core fundamental catalyst of slowing growth below the 30% level due to the tougher comps in 2025. So Morgan Stanley saying, yep, we got it wrong. We're upgrading the price. it probably deserves to be a little higher. UBS, Palantir reported numbers that stood in sharp contrast to the mixed results from Microsoft and ServiceNow last week, two other SaaS competitors, marked by 36% total revenue growth, an unusually high 7.3% revenue beat, and U.S. commercial TCV, total contract value, growth of 134%, all of which flowed through the material margin and cash flow beats. And then our boy Rishi said, Palantir reported a solid quarter and set 2025 guidance ahead of consensus, leading shares up 23% after hours. I'm kind of reading it in his voice, somewhat bolstered by retail investors supporting the stock. There you go. You got Palantir holding triple freaking digits in the pre-market as the street realizes they have to get on board to this story. I mean, it's there's no words. There's no words for a quarter like this. There are no words for a quarter like this, but it is happening. It is happening right now. I will be talking to Steve probably at 10 a.m. He might be able to call in. I got to talk to him this morning. I think he'll be able to call in later today. I'm also going to be talking to Dan Ives at 10:30. He's going to be on a Twitter Spaces, so I'll probably just stream some of the Twitter Spaces onto the show. So we'll get to ask him for about 15-20 minutes about his thoughts on Palantir. So we should have some coverage coming up from those guys later on in the show. But it's incredible. It's just absolutely freaking incredible. Now, what were the actual numbers? And then I'll get into the valuation, because I know a lot of people probably have some concerns of hey, is this sustainable? Which that's definitely a fair question right here. First of all, revenue growth 52% year over year in the United States. Top line revenue growth of 36%. I mean, I was hoping for 30%. We got 36%. They issued full year revenue guidance of 31%, which means Palantir is now growing in the trailing 12 months, or they will be growing in 2025, 31%. I think they're sandbagging. I think they're probably going to get that closer to 35%, if not 40% by the end of the year, which is another reason the street's buying the stock right now, because there's very few software companies that can compound at 30%. There's just very few of them. I mean, CrowdStrike's doing it, but there's not that many others that are out there, especially in the AI sector, that are actually compounding at these levels and are profitable, which is another amazing thing for Palantir. Commercial remaining deal value is $1.79 billion. That's up 99% year over year. They closed a record high deals at 129, 32 deals of at least 10 million, 58 deals of 5 million, and 129 deals of at least 1 million. So in total, you get to about 130 deals. Rule of 40 score was 81%. I mean, it's just, the rule of 40 is called the rule of 40 for a reason, because you're supposed to be at 40. And Karp made a joke about that yesterday, saying maybe the industry needs to up their standards, because we're way past the rule of 40. We are well beyond 40, more than double at 81%, which is a combination of your growth and your operating margins. And so that's why that rule of 40 matters so much for SaaS companies. They were profitable even with the SARS expense. They didn't miss because the quarter was so good. Why was the quarter so good? Because adjusted operating income margins went from 39% to 45%, which was one of the biggest theories we had going into the call. Hey, what if they are still able to be profitable even with the $130 million SARS hit that they took? Because their margins go up. And when your margins go up, your EPS goes up because your net income goes up. And so as a result, you're able to handle some headwinds, which in this case was a one-time headwind. And Palantir was able to do it because they had that much growth and that much operating leverage when it came to their margins. And then finally, $5.2 billion in cash, no debt. I think they bought back 1 million shares, something like that. Still having about 900 million they can use to buy back their stock over the coming years. It's just incredible. It's just incredible. And I think it's important to give Palantir their praises, because if you're a tech company in the stock market, it is so hard to grow. It is so hard to win. I mean, we've seen this time and time again. Tech companies, they rise up, they fail, they can't sustain the growth. I mean, time and time again, to just get your stock to get to the next level, to get investors, customers, employees to join the mission and believe enough to invest their hard-earned dollars into your company. It's not an easy thing to do. And uniquely in America, there is massive opportunity to do this, which is why we've created so many tech companies, but it's still really hard. It's also really hard doing it after 20 years of building a company that couldn't really make money. And now it's in the prime of its era. It's happening. And I think all of us, whether you're a Palantir shareholder or not, and I saw, I actually saw a lot of universal praise last night on Twitter from people who aren't even shareholders or who have been bearish to name for the past couple of months. Even they acknowledge, look, we still don't agree with the valuation, but we got to give it up to them. We've got to give it up to them because it is very hard to do this, and Palantir is doing it. And it's just an American success story that deserves to get all the praise in the world. Okay, so last thing I'll talk about, and then we'll get into Grab. Like a lot of you guys are asking about Grab, and we'll talk about macro. We got Jolt State at 10 a.m. We got a lot of stuff to get to. Ricardo, thank you for the 10 gifted memberships. Appreciate you. Thank you for being here right now. Victor Lee, thank you for the $50 super chat. Means the world. Thank you for being here as well and being part of the show. Valuation, and we'll talk more about Palantir throughout the show. But let's finish up with valuation. Then I'm sure there's plenty of other stuff we'll get into as we get through the show and we talk to other analysts and see what they have to say about the company. Look, the valuation doesn't make any sense. Okay, it doesn't make any sense. Palantir, when the market opens, is going to be worth about $230 billion, doing $3.5 billion of revenue. There's no way I can justify it. I'm not going to try to sound like an idiot justifying it from the numbers because I can't. However, it's really funny because over the past basically, I'd say 5 months since August, since September, when Palantir really started making his run, S&P inclusion, the argument has always been the numbers don't make sense qualitatively. Since $40, you could say the multiples were stretched, PEs were stretched, price of sales was stretched, etc. And that's where I started taking an angle on this show in particular every day. And if you've been here, you've kind of been hearing the same argument that there are other qualitative justifications that the stock is trading on. And that's not good nor bad. It just is what it is. And you either accept it or you don't. And the people that accepted it and bought, they've done very well. The people that didn't accept it, they probably may be reevaluating how they think of valuating companies, or in this case, valuating a unicorn that comes around once in a lifetime, because it's just never going to trade at the multiple that you want it to trade at. As a result, does it make sense for Palantir to add $40 billion in market cap in the past 24 hours? Probably not from a quantitative perspective, even though the growth was phenomenal. However, as Matthew says right here, there is no alternative. And at some point in life, if there's no alternative, it's a winner-take-all market, as Karp said a couple of years ago when he said we're literally trying to take the whole market when it comes to AI. I mean, do you guys remember that quote, right? When Karp said, they were like, what's your pricing strategy? Karp was like, we don't have one. We're going to take the whole market. I mean, they're executing on that. They are executing on that. They are absolutely getting to the point where one could argue, if they're not taking the whole market yet, which obviously they've got to get a lot more growth to be able to get there, the perception is they will take the whole market. And what is that worth? Well, that's probably worth a lot more than what it's worth today. And it's definitely worth a lot more than what it was worth last night before they got it for 30% growth, which if they're sandbagging and they get to 40% growth, this story gets even more exciting towards the end of the year. So I think the perception of growth that is baked into the stock is what's keeping it elevated. And that is not a bad thing. That does mean it could be volatile, as you know, companies have always been volatile based on trading on perceptions and qualitative metrics over just quantitative measures. However, when you've got a dedicated shareholder base that at this point, I mean, like, why do you sell, right? Like realistically, after you hear those results, unless you think it's the most overvalued company in the world, or you got to pay off some bills, which is totally fine. Those are reasons to take profits. But if you're long the name, and you're willing to handle downturns if they end up coming or not, why do you sell? There's nothing you hear on that call yesterday that tells you, oh man, I need to get out of Palantir. They're not executing. Right? So if there's no reason to sell, and there's a broader argument for why people are simply excited about the nature of how this stock is gaining momentum, and more people are getting excited about it, there's a world where it can continue to trade at pretty aggressive levels, and that aggressive premium doesn't have to go away. So, look, I can't justify the valuation. I'm not going to justify the valuation. I don't think any bull, I've talked to a lot of them since last night, can justify trading at almost $250 billion. I mean, we are trading at 70% of Salesforce's valuation, doing 13% of the revenue. Value, like Salesforce is $40 billion in revenue, and they're worth $350 billion. We're worth almost $250 billion, and we do less than $4 billion of revenue, right? Like, it doesn't make sense via the numbers, but when has the stock ever made that much sense on the numbers until it was, besides being below 30? And even below 30, people could have argued that it didn't make sense on the numbers. So from that perspective, I think it's a unicorn. I think the street is realizing their technology is differentiated. I think they're looking at OpenAI at $350 billion, and they're saying this is a commodity. Why does it matter? We should be looking at something that actually is the real thing. I think they're also looking at the potential of AI to be worth trillions in the future. And if Palantir has a pseudo monopoly on that, even if they get 30% of the market, not 100% of the market, that's probably worth trillions in the future. And if the street's thinking that, and they want to reserve their spot early in line, and they're thinking that for the next 4 years we are in a bull market because of Donnie T, it's hard to be super, super bearish on the name. That doesn't mean it won't be volatile, but it does mean there's explanations to justify this valuation outside of the numbers. And quite frankly, it's been the same story for the past couple months, and that story continues simply as Palantir has now put up even better growth. So there you go. That's what you got. Congrats to everybody. Congrats. It is a hell of a journey. It's been absolutely incredible. We'll talk more about Palantir throughout the day, but $103, up 23%. I mean, let's see at 9:30. Can it hold? Does it get sold off? Are there a bunch of sell orders just waiting to get executed? Or are people getting into the name and it goes higher? My gut feeling is that we hold 100 today. And maybe we go to like 95 or something, but I do think we are not giving back the 20% we got. And the funny thing is, let's say we fell 20%. Is that the dip? Is that, technically when a stock falls 20%, that's a dip. You usually buy, like Robinhood fell 20% yesterday, I would buy that, right? Like that's a dip. But Nvidia fell 20%, that's a dip. But if we fall 20%, we go to prices that we were at yesterday. And so the reason I'm bringing this up is because now on a 20% decline, you get dip buyers that get excited, which means you get theoretically support at $80, which, it's like $80 we thought was already like, all right, let's just see if we can hold that 80. And so I think Palantir's set up for a really good 2025. They can continue the growth. They're probably going to expand their growth. And if they keep expanding their margins, they're going to be able to get more net income and EPS without having to grow top line. And I think they are going to keep growing top line based on the demand projections that we saw from Karp and company yesterday. And as a result, I think this is going to be a special story that continues to play out over the coming decade. So there you go. That's what we got on Palantir. All right. We will talk more about Palantir throughout the rest of the show. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you for the 11,000 people that were part of the stream yesterday. Very special for those that were watching that entire journey with us. It was pretty exciting when we saw the numbers immediately come out, and then we saw the growth. And you can catch. I'll post the video here. I have a clip of our live reaction, so you guys can check that out if you haven't seen it. But it was special, dude. All of us on the panel that have been covering Palantir for the better part of 4 years, none of us could believe it. It was that special. And when a company is able to shock even their most largest supporters, that means that they're doing something very, very right. Okay, cool. Let's talk about Grab. So what's going on with Grab right now? This headline, I actually woke up at 5:30 today. I couldn't get sleep last night. I barely got sleep like in the morning. I didn't go back to sleep. So I was just up early. And ironically, I was up early. And not only do I see Palantir at all-time highs, I see Grab up 9%. And I'm like, what? What's going on here? So apparently what's happening is Grab has a major competitor, and that competitor is in Indonesia. And the name of the competitor is called Gojek. Gojek is another ride-hailing app, but more importantly, and I think they have 30 million users, more importantly, they're an e-commerce app. And they compete with C Limited and TikTok Shop and Alibaba's e-commerce competitor back in Indonesia. So Gojek joined a GoTo Group. Like I think last year, the name is called GoTo Group. It's like a parent company that just took them under their wing, and the company's worth about like $6.2 billion or something. Their stock is down badly in Indonesia and the Indonesian public markets over the past couple of years, but this year their stock is up year to date. A rumor came out this morning, and I don't think it's just a rumor. I think there's a lot of juice behind it because I saw multiple news outlets report on this, which is that Grab is in talks to buy them. And that's a big deal because one of the biggest issues with Grab, unfortunately, is that if they're in the ride-hailing business and the deliveries business, their margins suffer, right? It took Uber like 15 years to be able to get free cash flow margins that would be incredible for the street to actually be able to invest in them and give them a premium. And it's not easy to get that. Because it's a tough business, right? Like you're making a couple cents every order. And so you have to have hundreds and hundreds of millions of orders to be actually able to make a ton of revenue. It's also really tough when one of your biggest markets in Southeast Asia, Indonesia, has this local homegrown product that is competing with you on price. And then the consumer wins because the consumer just says, okay, if I'm not going to use Uber, I'm going to use Lyft. If I'm not going to use Grab, I'll use Gojek. But then Grab doesn't get that business. And then Gojek doesn't really get that much business either because they have to cut the prices so deeply just to get you off of Grab. If Grab buys them up, I mean, this would be pretty exciting. This would be pretty exciting. JP says, amid GoTo confirmed they have no plans to merge. So that's what GoTo's supposed to say right now. GoTo's supposed to say that. Now, why is GoTo supposed to say that right now? Well, the reason GoTo's supposed to say that is because they are not supposed to do a merger because in Southeast Asia in particular, mergers are kind of frowned upon. You have to get a lot of political connections to be able to definitively make a meaningful merger. It's not easy to do it. And so from the articles I read, the source that they are very serious in discussion, and this type of reporting wouldn't happen off like some random rumor that got reported to Bloomberg. This type of reporting would only happen if the companies are in such serious discussions that it's a possibility. Now, do I think it's going to happen? My gut feeling says no. I think the regulators are going to make it hard to make it happen. However, we're going to go through some due diligence where in Southeast Asia, it is a little bit more possible than not to get the regulators on your side if you, quite frankly, if you have a little bit of money. So we'll talk more about Grab in a second. We got Palantir right here on CNBC. Let's see what they're saying, and then we'll get deeper into Grab.
AI-related products. In his letter to shareholders, Palantir CEO Alex Karp wrote, "We are still in the earliest stages, the beginning of the first act of a revolution that will play out over years and decades. We've been preparing for this moment diligently for more than 20 years." Jim, you referenced what you said was an exceptional conference call. The exceptional valuation here doesn't seem to preclude it going far higher, trading at more than 50 times the EBITDA, right?
Right.
I'm sorry, 100 times EBITDA of 26 estimates at this
This is a
point.
company that's measured by the
50 times
Rule of
sales.
40, and it came at Rule of 81, which shows you that the revenue growth and the gross margins are extraordinary. I think that the call itself talked a lot about what the key to Palantir's growth is, which is ontology, meaning it's a core concept within its platform designed to bridge the gap between raw data and actionable insights. So what they do is they do an amazing deep dive on everybody that they have, and they come back with what they should do. And the artificial intelligence here is the king. But what they've really done is kind of just said, look, we can make anybody much better. And the resistance is that you may be stupid. You may not understand. I mean, it's very caustic. Well, look, Karp is caustic. Shyam Sankar is actually he does a lot of defense work. He's brilliant. He's done a lot of good stuff. There's a lot of really important people on the calls talking about what they're doing, say, with the Special Operations Command, what they're doing with military, which I wish they would tell you more. But what's incredible is you bring them in and they claim that you pretty much, because of the way that they're set up, can do a dramatic overhaul of your company or dramatic overhaul of the government. And they're working with Doge. And I think that this is a central and existential attack, ultimately not mentioned in the call, on the companies that run our Defense Department. And I'm talking about here Lockheed, I'm talking about Northrop Grumman. Right. I would not want to be those companies after reading this. They should read this conference call because this company is coming for them.
Yeah. Well, it now has, I think, the largest market cap of any of those that service the defense industry, at least in a robust way. I mean, listen, the U.S. commercial business, which, of course, has been growing and has been a focus of investors for some time, up 64%, and growth is accelerating. That, of course, is something that investors always embrace and are willing to pay very high multiples for. I am looking at a very positive note from Morgan Stanley this morning. They had a $95 price target. They upgraded the stock, but 95 is already being surpassed. They were talking about it being 52 times their, enterprise value. That over sales for 26, and that's already surpassed as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, again, when they talk about ontology, I mean, you do have to read this with I read it with you.com, and I read it with ChatGPT. Now, they think the chat, obviously, they're well beyond chat. And I get that. And I didn't mean to be mad at you. I'm not mad at you. I'm just in awe of these guys. And I was trying to reference them. No, I apologize.
I know when you're mad at me.
No, but I mean, when I went through the call, and I read it several times, and I used to be upset when Alex Karp cursed. I don't even care anymore. That was wrong.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you for not caring that a grown man said the F word. Thank you, Jim. We appreciate it.
I just care because it was like he didn't need to. I really like him, and I really love this company. And by the way, the defense guy is just extraordinary. And they're going to change the government. And they're working hand in glove with Doge.
And they are. And
working hand with glove.
He discussed it. And we should take a listen to what Karp had to say about the efforts undertaken by Elon Musk and his Doge department.
We love disruption, and whatever's good for America will be good for Americans and very good for Palantir. And I think you got it exactly right. Disruption, in the end of the day, exposes things that aren't working. There'll be ups and downs. There's a revolution. Some people can get their heads cut off. It's like we're expecting to see really unexpected things and to win. Basically, that's what we're going to do. See unexpected things, report expected things, and win. And we're planning to do that, and we're pretty optimistic about the U.S. environment.
It's very powerful.
You made a big point about your call for 100, which we got.
Right, I got it. I was
Today,
at 50.
Ives goes to 120.
No, I
You
said
going to
at
go
50.
there too?
Yeah, absolutely. I said at 50 and was going to go to 100.
That
And
was
I
a good
predicted
call,
yesterday
Jim.
that the
I need to step in right here. Jim did not seriously say at 50 it would go to 100. He said it the way Steve says it when I call him. Oh, we might as well take it to 100. So I just everyone needs to understand this guy has not been on the Palantir train. He's been saying it as a joke that it would go to 100. And now here we are. But, it's funny. It's funny. Mainstream media is recognizing it now. I guess we're getting to the point where Palantir is undeniable. And that's just what happens when CARP puts up these types of results.
I predicted yesterday that when it was at 80 yesterday.
We did the Mad Dash yesterday.
And that is just because I am in awe. Now, the only guy I'm not in contact with CARP. I do just think this Shyam Sankar is really talking about the way the Defense Department has to be redone. When I think that Musk is talking about saving a lot of money, what he's really talking about is you bring an outfit like Palantir in, and they distill what's important, the ontology.
All right, so that's CNBC's coverage. I think we're gonna need a lot more coverage. I don't have the Cathie Wood clip yet, but I believe she talked about Palantir this morning, so we'll listen to her in a bit after the bell. But yeah, Wall Street is definitely getting a bit more excited about Palantir. And then again at 10:30, I believe we'll be talking to Dan Ives on Twitter Spaces. I'll be streaming it on YouTube, so we'll get some coverage from him on Palantir as well. Okay, going back to Grab. So the idea is the reason the stock is up right now is because I think investors are looking at the company and saying, okay, if they're going to buy their biggest competitor in Indonesia, and quite frankly, their biggest competitor in Southeast Asia outside of Sea Limited, then that's a big deal. They're going to, theoretically, the article I was reading today, and a lot of you guys from Singapore put in the chat that these are very credible news sources that are reporting this. So I don't think it's like some, random blog. This is like actually legit sources that are saying this is going to happen. They would pay $7 billion is what I read. That's a 20% premium to where Gojek is trading today. Grab is an $18 billion company. They have $6 billion in cash. Would they use all $6 billion in cash to be able to buy Gojek? Probably not. They would probably issue a ton of stock to be able to get that done. And overall, as a shareholder, what do I think of it? I think it's genius. I think it's like Uber buying Lyft and not having to worry about Lyft and all the issues. Like if Uber bought Lyft 10 years ago, how much bigger would Uber be today without having to worry about, Lyft undercutting? I mean, I take a Lyft sometimes if I can't take an Uber because it's just cheaper, right? And that's business that doesn't go to Uber. So now granted, what the US regulators have allowed it maybe 10, 15 years ago, but now not today. Now today there would be all this anti-competition arguments about how Lyft gives more choices, yada, yada. In Southeast Asia, what I was reading this morning is that if you are politically connected, which is another reason I like Grab, because Anthony Tan, his father is very politically connected, even though he doesn't have a good relationship with his father anymore. His broader family is, for lack of a better word, kind of royalty in Singapore, if I'm not mischaracterizing it. And so he can get shit done. And in, Southeast Asia is not as meritocratic as the United States. In the United States, you can have an idea and you could, you turn that into a $200 billion company. In Southeast Asia, you kind of got to be in the right family, the right circles to make this stuff happen. So if anyone could convince the Indonesian and the Singapore governments to make this happen, I think it would be Grab and Anthony Tan. Here is what Gab Growth, which is an amazing account. I highly recommend following them. If you care about Grab, I'm putting their link in the chat right now. Definitely follow them because they do a lot of great analysis on this company. So Grab is the leading ride-hailing and food delivery platform in Southeast Asia. Its market share in ride-hailing outweighs the second largest Gojek, which is owned by GoTo Group, by 400%. GoTo is the result of a merger between Gojek and Tokopedia. Gojek is the second place in ride-hailing plus food delivery with an especially strong position in Indonesia, the largest country in Southeast Asia, which is why it's such an important market. Tokopedia is a small player in the e-commerce space, the fourth place behind SE, Alibaba, and TikTok Shop. Grab has had very strong 2 years of bottom line rapid profitability across all their metrics, free cash flow, EBITDA, etc. Ride hailing and food delivery have reached profitability, while financial services component could be profitable by 2026. I actually think that could be profitable by the end of 2025, at least on an adjusted EBITDA basis. But financial services is another big part of the company and a part of the thesis for why it's growing so well. Meanwhile, GoTo, which again owns Gojek, has struggled in recent years with the stock price down 77% from IPO and the business still far from profitability. Which is another reason this makes sense. I mean, if your stock's down 70% after a couple of years, investors are probably getting tired of it if they don't see any room for growth in one of the most competitive, margin-crushing businesses ever, which is ride-hailing and deliveries. It might make more sense for consolidation, which is why this talk seems like it's happening right now. Both companies have had on and off talks for years, targeting a combination that would reduce costs and competitive price pressure in the region. It appears that 2025 may be finally the year, and Gab says, I believe this has far-reaching consequences for the space, which will essentially allow Grab to become a pseudo-monopoly really capturing a lot of market share long-term and making them a viable competitor against Sea Limited, which is one of the leaders when it comes to e-commerce in Southeast Asia. Most of this acquisition would be for the e-commerce space. Obviously, it would be very good for ride hailing and deliveries because they would take out one of their biggest competitors. But in terms of e-commerce, Grab is nothing compared to SE. And if they could, start competing with them, now you're talking about a real race when it comes to market share and opportunity in Southeast Asia. So, to me, that's exciting. Now, it's hard to see the stock holding up. Like the stock's up 10% right now, 9.92%. I am a little skeptical the stock holds that because this is a rumor. And the only reason I think it's even holding it right now, and we'll see, Grab tends to dump at 9:30, so we'll see if it actually can hold. The only reason I think it's holding it is because the market thinks there's some real truth behind this acquisition. Otherwise, if it was a stupid rumor, I don't think it would be getting this type of attention in the pre-markets. And so if it's not a rumor, if it's legit, and Grab gets to buy them out, will there be some short-term headwinds on the stock? Probably, because they're going to have to dish out $7 billion to make this happen. But I think investors will be like, holy crap. Like, everyone thought Grab could be a $100 billion company. Right now, they're at $18 billion. If they make this acquisition, if they pull it off from a political perspective as well, I think they're on the path to becoming a $100 billion company. And the market will get very excited. Last thing on Grab, and then we'll move on to earnings. We got 8 minutes until the market opens. HSBC upgraded Grab from a hold to a buy, but they lowered their price target from $5.50 to $5.45. I swear sometimes these analysts just want to look smart, and they think if they lower their price target by 5 cents, it'll give them more credibility because of their valuation models dictated that a 5-cent adjustment was needed. It's kind of insane. But I'm happy they at least raised it from a hold to a buy. Here's what they said. We think valuations have become attractive after the recent price correction, and we upgrade the stock to a buy. We continue to think Grab should be able to strengthen its leadership position in key categories like ride hailing and deliveries due to its availability to continuously roll out innovative and affordable products. We expect Grab's on-demand GMV to grow at a robust pace of 14% CAGR over the next 2 years, led by growth in monthly transacting users and a higher frequency of transactions. We think the company's investment into various products will help to expand its total addressable market with more affordable solutions, and margins will improve with increased contribution from high-value offerings, scale, and advertising revenue. Thus, we expect Grab's adjusted EBITDA to rise 66%. This is exactly my estimation as well. I thought it would rise 65% going into 2025. So my number is exactly the same number they have, which is a $533 million adjusted EBITDA estimate, which would be massive because they already grew adjusted EBITDA 60% last year. So if they can grow it 60% over the next couple of years, that's where I see the stock getting to $10 by 2027. The stock trades currently at a 26 times 2025 EV to EBITDA multiple and 14.7 times 2026 EV to EBITDA multiple. Uber trades at 20, DoorDash trades at around 40. So you could see the free cash flow growth going much higher and the street willing to give it that premium, especially with all the cash they have on hand. Right now, they're trading at 30% cash because of that growth. That is now the inflection point of the Grab thesis and the Grab story. So I agree. That is a low multiple. For their growth, that is a low multiple. And if they can prove and execute on the growth thesis, this thing is getting upgraded much higher over the next coming years, and you're going to get a lot of people that are very excited about the story. So, look, those are my thoughts on Grab. I think this rumor makes sense if there's truth behind it, and stock right here is surpassing $5 in the pre-market. Grab tends to have a great pre-market and a crappy opening market. So, I mean, we'll see if it can hold it. Volume is not massive on Grab. It only gets about 20 million shares traded a day. There's 4 billion outstanding. So realistically, I'm not expecting anything out of Grab until Q4. In Q4, if they drop some big daddy numbers like Alex Karp dropped last night, I think the stock's going to be re-rated. Until then, it's kind of just going to be up in the air. But Q4, February 19th, we will see how the story plays out. All right, so that's what we got on Grab. Let's go around the market. We had a ton of earnings that we got to talk about, and we'll get deeper into them. Spotify crushes it. They are up 7%. Why is Spotify up 7%? Because they increased their gross profit margins decisively by almost 30%. And what the biggest concern about Spotify was they wouldn't become profitable. They became very, very profitable. This stock was $77. It kind of pulled a Meta, to be honest. It was $77 in 2022. Now it's at almost $600. Meta was $88. Got to 700. So Spotify, incredible thesis. I got that thesis completely wrong. I kind of fell into the Netflix trap when it came to Spotify. And why is Spotify winning? Because they have a pseudo monopoly on music streaming. They don't really because of Apple and YouTube and Amazon, but they kind of do because people that use Spotify, they're not using anything else, right? And so when you got that type of user base, it's hard to see them not growing the way they're growing. Pfizer also had earnings. They beat on the top and the bottom line. They're up 1.3%. EPS 63 cents versus 46 cents. Revenue 17.76 billion versus 17.26 billion. So they beat. PayPal beat on the top and the bottom line. I don't know why the street is not excited about this. It's down 7%. If anyone has any logic to explain why PayPal is like this, let me know. They're buying back 15 billion of their stock. They announced this morning. I don't get how stock goes down 7% after they beat on the top and the bottom line, and they announce a 300% increase in the amount of share buybacks they're going to be doing. Instead of 5 billion, it's 15 billion. I don't know. I don't know what's wrong with the PayPal thesis right here. It's actually getting me kind of interested in, like, is the street being stupid here? Is this an opportunity or what's going on? But I'm imagining there's something in guidance that's really pissing off the street when it comes to either transaction margins or overall GMV. And that's probably causing some issues right now for PayPal. Pepsi, they beat on the top when it came to EPS, 196, or revenue. They missed 27.7 versus 27.8. They beat on the bottom, 196 versus 194. Pepsi right here is down 2.26%. Now, Celsius's earnings is really going to depend on Pepsi. Celsius is up about 0.5%, so we'll see how that plays out going into Celsius's earnings. But Pepsi right here is down a little bit as well. Oh, Spotify actually missed on EPS. Wow. They're still up. They missed 183 versus 206 on EPS, revenue 4.4 versus 4.3 billion. Their MAUs came in at 675 million users, which, by the way, reminds me, I need to make this show available on Spotify. I need to like put the, because I know some of you guys listen to the audio. So I will do that probably starting next week. We'll have a audio version of the show. And it'll be there for anyone who wants to listen to it as a podcast. But yeah, Spotify, even with the miss on EPS, when you're growing users at almost 20 million a quarter, I mean, the street's going to reward that. So that one is up about 7% here and now. And then finally, we had Merck, which is another pharmaceutical company. They beat on the top and the bottom line, 172 versus 168, 15.6 versus 15.5 billion. Their stock right now is down 10%. Looks like there's something in the guide. Looks like there's something in the guide. All right, so that's what we got on earnings. What do we have for the rest of the show? Well, we're obviously in 2 minutes going to open the markets with Palantir, hopefully maintaining $100. It's at $102.65 right now. So my gut feeling is I think we hold 100. I'm going to make that poll real quick in the chat to see if you guys think we can hit 100. Then throughout the rest of the show, we have JOLTS data at 10 a.m. That's going to be important. We have updates on the tariff war with Canada and Mexico. That is no longer a war. It's like, well, it was a pump fake, I guess. And it's pretty hilarious because on Sunday night, I said there's a 20% chance I think this is going to be a pump fake, 80% chance this is real. That number probably should have been flipped. 80% chance this is obviously a pump fake, and it was Trump negotiating. And then 20% it was real. It ended up being a pump fake. So Trump got a lot of concessions from Trudeau and the Mexican president. We'll talk about that later, but that's also pumping the broader markets. Now, NVIDIA caught a little bit of a bid last night, not really catching a bid right now. Well, it's up a little bit, 0.2%, 116.93. I bought a little bit more of NVIDIA last night, like 10 more shares. So I have 480 shares now. I have 20 shares left to round out my 500 share goal. And so we'll see if I buy that today or wait a little bit. But NVIDIA right here, at least holding 116, not at the lows of 113 that it was at yesterday. But Palantir will be the story today. Palantir will be the story today at $102 currently right now. All right, here we go. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of this journey. It is 9:30 a.m., ladies and gentlemen. The stock market is now open. Wake your ass up, and to be honest, you probably don't need any coffee to wake your ass up today. Palantir opens the day at $102. We are still holding 100 right now. We are not dipping below 100 yet. I'm looking at the order book volume right now. It is sustaining 20%. There's a ton of bids coming in that I'm looking at 101, 102, 100. The sell side wall is not really there. The next really big wall for Palantir is 105, where you got 500,000 shares waiting. There is some selling, obviously. We're seeing it get a little hit, but selling from the pre-market since last night, it was at $80, so it's still up 21%. So even if we go below $100, I mean, we're still going to be up like 15%. But triple digit. Triple digits. That was the first bell ever for Palantir at $100. Triple digits kind of happened all at once. There wasn't any time to prepare for it. They had great numbers. Carp started speaking, and the street realized they want to be part of this story for the long term. So there you go. Palantir at 100.75. We'll get to Palantir in just a second. Spotify is up 7%. PayPal is down 9%. PayPal turning back into PayPal today. Not sure what's happening here, but PayPal's down. Where is Grabby Grab? Grabby Grab just grabbed $5, baby. There you go. There you go. Grab actually holding 10%. I'm impressed. Holding $10 is, or 10% is not easy for a stock that doesn't get a ton of volume. So it looks like some of that volume is coming in because people are excited about Grab. Look at that. $5.01, up 10% of the day. Not bad at all. Where is Hoodie? Hood is at 52. Not bad. 52, 51.97. So that's basically flat on the day. Bitcoin right here at 99,000. Now, China did announce retaliatory tariffs. China did announce that. We'll talk more about that later. That's actually why I think at like 2 a.m., I saw the market kind of take a little bit of a dip last night in the overnight markets because of those retaliatory tariffs. It's not that serious, but it is kind of serious when you kind of look at some of the sectors they're putting tariffs on. So that could be another headwind that people have to deal with today. But so far, market's not reacting that badly to it. SMCI announced that they're going to have earnings on February 11th. So we do have an official date. They're up 5%. Tesla is up 1%. S&P 500 basically flat on the day. Snapchat is up 1%. They've got earnings coming up today. Enphase at 65.91. That's up 3%. Google up 1%. They have earnings today. Google, AMD, Snapchat, and Chipotle. I'll be covering all those earnings later today on the market close. Palantir still holding 100. 102, baby. 102. We are holding 100 and Grab. Wow. 510 on Grabby Grab, up 12%. Here right now, I mean, look, if we buy out our biggest competitor, yeah, it probably deserves to be up 12%. So the market's thinking that that's not a rumor, that's real. And as a result, it makes sense. So there you go. Grab right here at 511. NVIDIA 117. That's up 0.5%. So we got some love on NVIDIA. Palantir is still at 102. Robinhood 52.31. That's up almost 1%. Meta trying to get back to 700. Bitcoin. Wow. Nice move to 100. It was just at 99.7. Now 100.2. So that was a pretty big candle right here on Bitcoin. Is ELF getting hit? ELF is down 3%. I don't think ELF had earnings today, but ELF is down 3% right here. Where is the lab of rockets? Rocket Lab is up 5%. There you go. Spotify. Wow. Crossing $600. Congrats to those owning Spotify. Let me know in the chat if you own Spotify at all. I mean, 600. That's a big one, dude. That it's a Netflix story playing out. They're growing users and they're growing profitability while they're growing users, even if they have to pay a lot of money for the content. So incredible. And you know, the other reason I'm happy for Spotify, Europe doesn't have a lot of tech companies that win. And so for Daniel Ek to show Europe and Sweden that it's possible to build a $120 billion tech company, hopefully that inspires more people in Europe to try. So shout out to the Swedes. Absolutely incredible for Spotify. 601 currently right now. Southwest is down 0.5%. Broadcom's basically flat. IBM's up 1/3%. Let's go to the semis right here and see how they're doing. Semis are relatively green. NVIDIA's up, AMD's up, SMCI's up, Intel's down, Broadcom's up, Qualcomm's flat, TSM's up 2%, Marvell's is down 5%. Don't know why, but that's down 5%. Dell is up 0.5%. Micron is up 0.29. The Mag 7s are all green except Microsoft and Apple, which continue to go down 0.5%. Tesla just turned red. NVIDIA 118, that's up 1%. Amazon and Google are up 1%, and then Meta back above 700. Meta back above 700. Rocket Lab is above 30 or very close to being above 30. $29.97. Palantir. Wow. We are still holding 100, folks. It doesn't look like the street wants to sell. And if they're not going to sell and the people buying at $7 don't want to sell, well, someone's going to have to buy these shares at a much higher level. 103 for Palantir here right now. Let me check resistance on 104. My sister must be going crazy. She's probably not even working right now. She's probably just looking at her portfolio. 104, 114,000 shares. 114,000 shares. We are very close to 104, though. We're 10 cents away. So in 10 cents, if we could break through 114,000 shares, we're going to 104. We are going to 104. Congrats, everybody. Congrats. Absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. I mean, it's an American success story. And it is a true patriotic story that is playing out. It is a story of sacrifice for 20 years and then win and then go through the pain to get to this glory. And investors across the world, even if you're not from America, have been able to take part of the story, which is very special. Very, very special right here. Palantir 103.3. Pepsi's down 2%. Celsius is down 0.5%. Spotify still up 9%. Grab is holding 5. She's holding 5, up 12%. She's holding it. Volume is already 10 million shares on Grab in 6 minutes. Average volume on Grab is 18 million shares. So they've done half their volume in the first 6 minutes of the market opening today. That to me is bullish. Very, very bullish. SMCI right here, again, they're going to have their earnings on February 11th. They're up 4%. As long as the company is not a fraud, I think this gaps up. If it is a fraud, it probably gaps down, but at least they let us know that they're having their earnings. So that's good to know for SMCI. Palantir right here, 103.90. It's trying to get there. 103. There you go. 104. $104. We just broke through the 114,000 share wall. 104 for Palantir. This is
Powerful as fuck.
I mean, this is wild, bro. This is wild. This is just, it's like, dude, I remember posting a picture on Twitter when Palantir hit $20. I was at the gym, August 2023, and I posted it on Twitter, and my caption was, "This is more beautiful than the Mona Lisa." I mean, what do you say about something with triple digits? Like, what's more iconic than the Mona Lisa? Is there any piece of art that's out there that I can compare this to? I thought Mona Lisa is like the most valuable. Is there anything else that I can compare it to? Because this is crazy. This is crazy. It is PAF, baby. It's PAF. It's Palantir as fuck. That's what it is. That's what it is. Also powerful as fuck. I mean, this is just incredible. This is just incredible. PAF is going to be such an inside joke for like the next decade, which is the other beautiful thing about this community. We have so many inside jokes. We have so many memories. You know, one day we're all going to be reflecting on this 20, 30 years from now. I'm sure plenty of us will meet up in the future and get to talk about Palantir. I mean, we were talking about the Vegas party at 100. I mean, it's here. When's the party? Who's planning it? Maybe I need to plan it for the Vegas meetup. Maybe we need to. Goodness gracious. It's happening, bro. As Carp said, it is happening. Okay, so let me ask another question. Let's level off a little bit of the euphoria right here. Let me ask a question in the chat. Are you more excited or nervous about Palantir? Are you more excited or nervous about Palantir? And the way to answer this question is excited means excited I would define as you don't care if the stock falls because you're so excited about the story and the thesis. Nervous is you're really scared about this multiple, you're really scared about this valuation, and you're seriously thinking of getting out of a decent chunk of your position because you think it's unsustainable. That's how I would define excited and nervous. Nervous is you're getting a little anxious. Excited is, dude, it could drop back to 50 and I don't care because I would be happy to buy more shares at 50. That's how I would define how to answer that question. I would say excited, and I know I'm a little biased here, but it's just to try to hedge back against some of my bias. Nothing I heard on that call yesterday told me to sell. Nothing. There's nothing. Yeah, there's nothing you can point to. You can point to the valuation, which you could point to for the past like 5 months, but you can't point to the actual metrics. And if you can't point to the metrics as a reason to feel scared, then it's only a question of how the street interprets it, and that's a subjective decision you have to make when it comes to valuation. But when it comes to the actual execution of the company, I mean, what is there to be upset about? Like legitimately, what is there to be upset about? I would be curious to find out because there's nothing I saw on that call yesterday. 105, resistance at 105 is 331,000 shares. 331,000. 331,000. Where is Grab? Grab just below $5, $4.99, still holding on to 5. If we can end the day at 5, that would be big for Grab. So let's see if we can close at 5, but not bad. 330,000 shares to get to 105 on Palantir. Palantir is now worth $238 billion in market cap. And I know when I say that, a lot of people in the chat are probably like, that's ridiculous. And I get it. But there's a reason the street's excited about this name. And at this point, if they're excited, they will continue giving it a premium. And it is what it does. I mean, you have to buy it here, but it does mean that a premium will be given. And you can hate it, you can love it, but this is what's happening. You can hate it, you can love it, but this is what's happening. We are very close to 105, folks. We are like 5 cents away. It got rejected at 104.9 just now. Did we hit 105? It was very quick, dude. If we hit it, I didn't even see it. So I think we got to. No, we did, right? Hold on. Let me check the wall. If the wall is gone, we did hit it. Is there still 300,000 shares? Or is there? No, we hit it. We hit it. We did hit it. We did. Yeah, there's no more wall. There's no more wall. We're probably gonna get right back to 105. All right. I'm sorry, guys, but For those that need to cover their ears, you can cover your ears. But here we go. We got to ring the bell for 105. Yeah, we hit it on the dot, dude. We hit it right on the dot. 52-week high, 105. Which means, again, historically, when that happens to Palantir, it comes right back. It takes a little bit of a dip after it touches it, and then it comes right back. It just got rid of 300,000 shares at 105. How much is that? That's like 30 million, right? No, a little bit more than that. 32 million. Yeah, exactly. $32 million of stock was just purchased 25 seconds ago. So once we got through that, there is a shot we can get right back there. Grab holding $5.04. Robin at 52.29. Nvidia not slowing down either. Nvidia right here 1.31%, 118.2. Spotify's up 10.89%. Soundhound, great day for the Soundhound bulls. That's up 7%. S&P 597. Tesla 388. SoFi getting a little bit of love right here 15.50. Hims almost at $40. 39.81. Amazon at 238. They've got earnings on Thursday. Google's got earnings today. And then Uber right here up 2.4% as well. Uber is green on the day. Palantir 103.50. This is pretty incredible. I'm going to be buying 10 shares of Palantir right now just for the culture. I told myself in the morning I would be doing it, and so I'm doing it. I have never bought in the hundreds. Last time I bought was 65. Am I overpaying? Probably. But we're doing it for the culture. We're doing it for the culture. There you go. My first buy ever at $100. Probably just massively increased my cost basis, but it's okay. It's okay. My cost basis went from 4 to 25 on that. It's okay. We're still up a good amount. We increased the cost basis by $1, but it was worth it, bro. It was absolutely worth it. And the other reason it's worth it, dude, the other freaking reason it's worth it, I just love this company so much. I cannot explain how much I love this company. And here's my number one reason for why I love this company. It has nothing to do with the growth or Karp's hair or anything like that. It's this one sentence Karp said yesterday. This one sentence. That one sentence was, we did it our way. We did it our way. And when someone goes through life rejecting every single principle and rule and ideology and ecosystem and structure that is imposed on them, and they do it their way, they defy the odds, and they say I'm not going to capitulate to the world is going to capitulate to me. For someone to go on that journey in life is special. Most people don't do it. And so most people have the privilege to be able to invest in that person's journey of going up against the world and taking the road less traveled. And that's what Palantir did for 20 years. And they are getting rewarded for that. And it's just so special. And the other special thing is they are bringing everyone along for the ride. And who's coming along for the ride? It's not Rishi. It's not Morgan Stanley. It's not Goldman Sachs. It's not RBC. It's average people with 9 to 5 that took a little bit of their money and they said, you know what? I'm going to take a chance on Karp. And that's why this is just so special. That's why this is just so unbelievably special. So 104.7, we'll see if we can break 105 again. We just touched it, 104.90. It looks like we're going to get there 10 cents away. We probably break 105 again. That historically tends to happen with Palantir. So we'll see if we can get there again here later today throughout the show. Google right here, 203, SoFi 1552, Enphase 6578, Snapchat 1131. They've got earnings today. I have a swing trade on Snapchat with 400 shares. I bought at 1070, hoping to sell them at 14. Could we really get a 30% pump on Snapchat? I don't know. I would be happy to see it get to $12.50 if they have some good numbers. More likely than not, Snapchat's going to tank to $8 today because it's Snapchat, so why not? But we'll see if that swing trade works out. SMCI at $27.99, Rock Lab at $28.80, Grab still holding $5, Hoodie $52.28, and Nvidia right here at $118. Oh, there you go, 105. We're back to 105. There we go, 105.30. Nvidia right here, 118.5, and then Palantir at 105.4. Well, you know what's better than 105? 106. So let's check resistance. You know that SpongeBob meme where he's like, Patrick, you know what's better than 24? 25. It's like that's what we're doing right now. 106 has 60,000 shares. 60,000 shares. So, maybe we can get there. Shout out to Evan in the chat. I'm going to be on his spaces in about 40 minutes at 10:30. He's going to have Dan Ives on the show. I'll be streaming it live on YouTube. It'll be about 15 minutes. I'll get to ask Dan some questions on raising his price target to $120. Bank of America, by the way, raised it to $125. I'll put Evan's Twitter in the chat right here. If you guys are not following Twitter or Evan on Twitter, definitely make sure to check him out. He is the best place for stock market news. He is the fastest. He's basically my Bloomberg terminal. I got the results yesterday from him because I don't have a Bloomberg terminal. I don't know if Ev has like 5 Bloomberg terminals in his house, but he finds a way to get the numbers very quickly. So definitely make sure to check him out. We will be doing Twitter Spaces with him in about 30 minutes. Okay, are we about to hit 106? Are we about to hit 106? We are very close. We're 10 cents away. Again, whenever we are 10 cents away, or at this point 5 cents away, we tend to crack the next dollar. It's been happening for literally $105 over the past year. So let's see. We got very close. I think we could crack it. If we're 10 cents away, it tends to get cracked. It tends to get cracked. Let me know what a question you guys want me to ask Dan Ives. Put in the chat. I'll probably get to ask him like 2 or 3 questions. So let me know what question you would appreciate. Jughead, thank you for the $2 super chat. Amit, me and my wife love you. Jughead, appreciate you and your wife. Hopefully the gains on Palantir have been life-changing for you as a couple, and hopefully it's helped the entire family out. So appreciate you being here every day, and yeah, thank you for being here, and thank yourself for taking a risk on that. You know, this is the big message I wanted to get across to everybody yesterday. You deserve it, dude. You deserve it. Whoever's up on this name, you deserve it. No matter what the bears say, you deserve it. You took the risk, you took the chance, and you get to benefit off Palantir hitting $106. Palantir stock is becoming
Powerful as fuck.
Dude, that's such a good sound. It's such a good sound. We are going to use that sound so many times, bro. Oh my God. It's a great sound. It's a great sound. Grab holding on to $5. NVIDIA 118, Palantir 106. Well, you know what's better than 106? I mean, 107 sounds a little bit better to me. Resistance at 107 is 72,000 shares. 72,000 shares. All right, well, just look, you can either hate this or you can enjoy it. It is what it is, right? You either hate it or you enjoy it. Like, it's like, I tend to enjoy it. Does it make sense numerically? It doesn't have to. It doesn't have to. I think you can kind of just enjoy the process of it. And if you're not selling back down, if you think it's going to go back down, then who cares? Enjoy it in the meantime. And if it goes back up, all right, it's fun to see it go back up. So to me, it doesn't have to be too overcomplicated. Like, you either enjoy it or you don't. And if you really want to take some profits, then take some. If anyone who wants to take some profits, take your freaking profits. You deserve your profits. In the stock market, the goal is to make a profit. I would just say, given what I saw from the earnings yesterday, having somewhat of the position left for the long term is not a bad idea. But if you're up 10x and you got to pay off the mortgage or something, like, it's not a bad thing at all to take some profits here, especially if the market's giving. I mean, you're getting a hell of a better price than Peter Thiel selling at $30. Let's just say that you're getting a hell of a better price, dude. If Peter Thiel left at this point, what is it? Almost $8 billion on the table. And again, it's Peter Thiel. I mean, like, you know, there's one of the greatest investors of all time. It's just even he at $35. So, you know, it wasn't really just the bear saying it was overvalued at 35. You had one of the biggest insiders at 35 saying, yeah, $85 billion market cap is kind of aggressive. I don't think he thought it was going to $243 billion in the span of 5 months after he sold. But it's here. And part of the reason it's here is because a lot of retail investors believed in it, continue to hold. And so you deserve to be rewarded for that. You deserve to be rewarded. Doing all of this with 3,800 employees is crazy. I mean, that dude, their revenue per employee, their market cap per employee. I mean, when you're such an efficient company, when you have such a beautiful culture where people actually want to be there and not just be there for the paycheck. And quite frankly, they're not. I mean, I know a bunch of Palantir employees. They're getting paid very less than what they could get paid at Google or Amazon or Microsoft or even Meta, but they're there for a bigger reason, and they're getting paid in stock. And thankfully, the stock has worked out very nicely for them. Very, very nicely for them. Kenneth says, question for Dan. How surprised are you for your price target having been met? That's a good question. That's a good question. Yeah, I'll definitely ask him about how he's thinking about the price. Look, here's the thing. Dan doesn't do valuations. Dan is not a spreadsheet guy. Dan is thinking that this is going to be the next Oracle or Salesforce. And when you think it's going to be that, then obviously the stock goes higher. Is it worth $250 billion today? That's up for the market to decide. But right now the market is deciding yes. And if you believe it could be Oracle or Salesforce one day, then theoretically it has a lot more momentum to go, especially if you think it could be more important than those companies one day, which I know is crazy to say because those are massive companies. I get it. but the street's acting like there is a shot for that to happen. And B2B enterprise SaaS, that's crazy, dude. What's happening to Palantir is what happened to Tesla back in 2019, where every automotive company got left in the dust because everyone realized, oh, Tesla's going to be Tesla, and they rewarded them for that heavily. And that doesn't happen in B2B enterprise SaaS. Like, that's a boring part of the market. No one's supposed to care about B2B enterprise SaaS. But Palantir made it exciting. And a lot of that has to do with the differentiation of their product, their moat, and also Alex Karp. And as a result, that's why the street is excited right here. That is why the street is excited right here. Tesla 15x in 1 quarter. Yeah, dude, the Tesla thing was crazy. The Tesla thing was absolutely crazy. So, I mean, that's kind of how the street's thinking about it when it comes to Palantir in terms of the perception of their growth. Grab right here, still holding 5. NVIDIA 118. Hoodie just went a little red, 51.90. ELF is still down 4%. If anyone knows why ELF is down, let me know in the chat. I think they probably got a downgrade, and that's why they're getting hit. They've been kind of red throughout the entire last month. I think they have earnings coming up soon. I think like this week on Thursday. Google at 203, SoFi 1550, Snapchat 1125. HIMS is at 40. Shout out to everyone in HIMS. Congratulations. That one has worked out very well. This thing's up more than 40% year to date. So, I mean, this one's done great. This one's done great. Oh, Estee Lauder is down 10%. Right. Yeah. That'll affect ELF. Makeup and beauty kind of in the same niche. Okay. So Estee Lauder is down 10.9%. So ELF's getting hit. Ulta's probably getting hit as well. Right. Ulta slightly, I mean, it's green, but it's basically flat on the day. For those that are just joining, Grab is up because there are serious reports that Grab is going to be acquiring one of their biggest competitors. That is why it's up right now. Will it happen? I don't know, but the sources that have reported from Southeast Asia are very credible companies and journalistic entities, and so the media sources that are reporting it seem to be pretty serious that this is something that could happen. And if it does, Grab's taking out their biggest competitor in Indonesia in ride-hailing and deliveries, which is massive for them if they're able to acquire them. They also bought one of their biggest competitors in Cambodia in December. But the one they're looking to acquire would be about 7 billion, much bigger competitor, 30 million users. It would be a really, really big deal if they could get it done. And so I guess we'll find out over the coming months if that ends up happening. Palantir did not hit 107 yet. We are still 72,000 shares away from 107. We got pretty close, though, 106.91. Again, when we're usually 10 cents away from that next dollar, we tend to crack through. So we got 9 cents away from it this time. There is a shot we see. There's a shot we see 107. Harry Wild, thank you for the $50 super chat. Appreciate it. Thank you, Harry Wild, for being here, and thank you for the $50 super chat. Krupa says, my Palantir profits are officially higher than NVIDIA profits. Wow, Krupa, thank you for the $5 super chat. You've been in NVIDIA for a long time, so congrats. That's pretty massive, because I know you've been in NVIDIA for a minute now, so absolutely incredible. Intelligent Computing, thank you for the $5 super chat. When Palantir was $21 on May 8th, 2024, I sold 10 $17 puts and I bought 10 $30 calls with the put premium. Net cost was $1,400. I'm currently up over 70,000. Thanks, Amit. That's pretty cool. I should have done the same thing. That's incredible. Congratulations to you. I mean, 10 $30 calls when the stock was far away from 30, took some guts. I mean, I can't imagine the people that bought like $15 calls expiring January 2025 when the stock was 7 and we ended up going to 80. I mean, you talk about life-changing amounts of money. So again, it's like, so Intelligent Computing, what you said right there, my sister's portfolio this morning, which she's probably freaking out about right now, looking at it, like it's one of those things where this is life-changing money. And for once, or maybe for twice, retail gets to participate in life-saving money or life-changing money before the streets. Here's an example. Airbnb was one of the worst IPOs ever. Why? Because the bankers jacked up the price knowing that retail would not be able to get in, and Airbnb doubled by the time it went public. And who made all the money? JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs. This shit happens all the time. All the time in the stock market. The rich get richer. It's a very ruthless, cutthroat game. It is very difficult for a Tesla to happen. It's very difficult for a Palantir to happen. And when it happens, the fund managers get really upset because they don't like to not be in a name that makes money, because their job is to find the names that make money. And so the fact that retail is getting rich off this, I mean, to me, it warms my heart because it's very hard for retail to have an edge over the street. I mean, it only happens, quite frankly, if like the stock hits the gutter, which Palantir did in 2022. So we had that check. And then 2, you need a community of crowdsourced due diligence, which we've been able to build over the past couple of years, that also gets people interested in the name. Otherwise, it doesn't happen. There's not enough momentum to make a name go from 6 to 100 when it's the most hated name on Wall Street. But it happened here, and a lot of people have been able to make life-changing money, it's just incredible. 105.3 right here on Palantir. Wow, Nvidia 2.5, 119.6. Nvidia getting some love. Grab holding 512. Robinhood 52.14. We'll be talking to Dan Ives at 10:30. Let me listen to Cathie Woods and see what she has to say about Palantir. Let me pull this up real quick. And get her thoughts on some of Palantir's price action here today.
Expensive stock, but there's nothing like it in the software space. It is, we believe, going to dominate the biggest part of the tech stack when it comes to AI, and that's the platform as a service part of the stack. So very excited. And again, if you think about the AI revolution, we are today where we were when it came to the internet in the early to mid 90s. So again, we've just begun. And so we have miles to go. And then of course the applications, Tesla, not only do we have robo-taxis, but now humanoid robots. And so to give you a sense of slowly, then all at once, we certainly think with Tesla, robotaxi is this year. I know that Elon's been saying that it was going to be just around the corner for the past 6 or 7 years, and we thought it would be sooner, but it is here. That is a huge opportunity. What's happening faster than we expected is the humanoid robot opportunity. Tesla in the public markets, certainly Figure AI, Aptronic in the private markets. We own those in our venture fund. So
Cathie's excited, obviously, about Palantir, but also on Tesla. This is the first time I'm hearing her publicly speak about humanoids. Her valuation model, which implies Tesla's like at a $3,000 price or something, she doesn't factor in humanoids. It's only robotaxi. So the fact that she's talking more about humanoids, I think the entire world is waking up to the thesis, and obviously that could be very beneficial for a company like Tesla. Grab right here, 515. So it looks like the momentum is holding for Grab. Really nice to see some of this. What's funny, guys, is my sister last night, those spreads I told you guys about, 7.5, $10 spreads. I bought her 940 of them last night. I cleared out a bunch of junk from her portfolio, and I was just like, I finally got her account upgraded to level 3 to be able to do spreads on Robinhood. And literally yesterday, I was like, I'm just buying as many spreads as I could. I did not know this shit was going to happen the next day, because now those spreads are about 20% more expensive. But there you go, up 14%. So if we win on Grab, my sister will be winning with us. So she was part of the Palantir story. She was part of the Hood story. She's going to be part of the Grab story. She's just a representation of me in her portfolio. And hopefully it works out for her in the long term. All right, so HIMS is 41. Congrats on HIMS. That one continues to do well. Let's see JOLTS data. This could kind of break the markets if it's not pretty, but it could also help the markets. And we're going to see how believable these numbers are. The market is expecting 7.8 million jobs. We came in at 7.6 million. 7.6 million. 7.6. Okay, so that's lower than expected, which is actually kind of good. Why is that good? Because inflation has been an issue, and if we have less jobs available, theoretically less spending. Is the S&P up right now? Is the S&P green? The S&P goes green. The S&P goes green. The S&P goes green. There you go. There you freaking go. Looks like that JOLTS data was what we needed. Oh, that's good JOLTS data. First of all, it's good JOLTS data for a couple reasons. Number one, no one believed in the previous JOLTS data of like 8.2 million jobs. Like, no one believed that shit. No one believed that shit. So, and now with Elon cutting all these government jobs, they might not be able to use the government jobs to kind of beef it up. So if that's the case, then this seems like a more realistic reading, at least to an extent. Number two, we need the labor market to not be weak, but a little bit cooler than what it is right now in order for rate cuts to be back on the table in a more serious way. Again, we to have lower rates, we need lower inflation. To have lower inflation, you generally need less spending, and that comes from less jobs being available. So if that's the case, at least that's the market perception of it, and that's what's allowing the market to potentially get a little bit of a benefit from what we're seeing right here. Let me see the other parts of this data. So we came in at 7.6 million, 200,000 below what the street expected. I will be streaming the Crypto Czar at 2:30 p.m. today. So David Sachs will be talking at 2:30 p.m. I'll be streaming that on the channel, and we'll hear what he has to say about Bitcoin. Factory orders came in at negative 0.9%. The street thought it would be negative 0.7%. So a little bit of contraction there. Factory orders ex transportation came in at 0.3%. The street thought it would be 0.6%. Again, a little bit of contraction, which is not the worst thing in the world. And then JOLTS job quits came in at 3.19 million. The street thought it would be 3.1 million. So about 3.197 million, basically in line with expectations of people quit their job, which leads to a little bit more unemployment, which could lead to more rate cuts. All right, not bad. Not bad at all. Not bad at all. Grab still holding 511. We hit a high of 516. Volume on Grab is almost 30% above what it's usually at, and it's only an hour or 30 minutes into the market open. At 10 a.m., we're at 24 million shares. It averages about 18 million a day. So you've got a lot of heavy volume deciding to buy off this rumor that they are potentially buying their biggest competitor. NVIDIA right here, 119.92, looking like it's going to get to 120. Palantir, we already hit 106. We are looking for 107 now. Palantir just below 106 at 105.83, but it's holding 100s. I mean, it's holding the 100s. It's just exceptional. Just exceptional right here for Palantir. Massive fires in a large city, you're going to contribute to unemployment. Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't even think of that. I didn't even think about the LA fires. I did not think of that. Of course, that would lead to some unemployment. Yeah, that's a good point. That could definitely be a reason. You know, people said the LA fires were going to be inflationary, which they probably are. But if there is some job loss from that, that is also theoretically deflationary to an extent as well. So you do have some of that coming in right there from the LA fires. SoFi's tanking on JOLTS. Really? Are the banks tanking? Well, SoFi is giving back its gains. Are the banks tanking? Hold on, JP Morgan. Yeah, all the banks. Okay, so hold on. Why are the banks falling on less jobs available? Oh, because that means more cuts, and cuts are not necessarily people think cuts are amazing. For banks, it lowers their net interest income. So it's not like cuts are amazing. It's just the volume of loan originations they can do when you have cuts is what helps them. Yeah, all the banks, they're all green, but they all have red candles. They're giving back a ton of their gains. But still, you could get the market interpreting it as theoretically negative. Nubank right here is up 1% as well if their net interest income comes down as well. So that could be something that's happening. 120 on NVIDIA. All right, here we go. 120 on NVIDIA. 113.75 potentially could have been the bottom. And I still have to buy 20 more shares of NVIDIA because I got to round out the position. So I don't know. Is 120 a good price to do it at? My average is probably always going to be around 124, 125. We didn't even talk about the trade war stuff. We should talk about that. Maybe we'll finish that today. But the trade war stuff is another reason why NVIDIA is gapping up right now, because now it looks like there's not going to be that many tariffs, which here's my take on the trade war. And we'll talk more about it in the future. But I think Trump's going to have many more things he says over the next couple of years that are going to be ridiculously volatile for the markets. And we will have fantastic opportunities, but all of them will be short-lived because we are in a pro-growth era. We are in a pro-growth era. And so all the volatile things that happen, regardless, there are going to be opportunities. How do I know we're in a pro-growth era? Well, I got to play this clip for you guys. If you guys missed this headline, we could barely talk about it yesterday because of Palantir earnings, but this would have been the headline on the market close if Palantir did not have earnings. Donald Trump signed a sovereign wealth fund for the United States. Let's take a look at this from yesterday.
This is an executive order. Discharges your Secretary of the Treasury, Scott Bessent, and your Secretary of Commerce, Howard Lutnick, to begin a process that will hopefully result in the creation of an American sovereign wealth fund.
It's a very exciting event. We're going to have a sovereign wealth fund, which we've never had. We have a lot of things that create wealth, and you're seeing that over the last 2 weeks. I think we've created more wealth. Other people have created de-wealth. The people, my predecessors, we're creating a lot of wealth. Scott, maybe you'd like to say something about it, and I'd ask also Howard to say something about it.
Yes, sir. This is very exciting. We're going to stand this thing up within the next 12 months, we're going to monetize the asset side of the U.S. balance sheet for the American people. We're going to put the assets to work. And I think it's going to be very exciting. We're going to study best practices that's done around the world. It'll be a combination of liquid assets, assets that we have in this country as we work to bring them out for the American people.
The extraordinary size and scale of the U.S. government and the business it does with companies should create value for American citizens. If we are going to buy 2 billion COVID vaccines, maybe we should have some warrants and some equity in these companies and have that grow for the help of the American people. So I bring all these things together. I think Scott and I will create an amazing sovereign wealth fund for you, sir. So other countries have sovereign wealth funds, and they're much smaller countries, and they're not the United States. We have tremendous potential in this country, tremendous. You're seeing that's what's happened just in a short period of time. And as an example, TikTok, we're going to be doing something perhaps with TikTok, and perhaps not. If we make the right deal, we'll do it. Otherwise, we won't. But I have the right to do that. And we might put that in the sovereign wealth fund, whatever we make, or if we do a partnership with very wealthy people, a lot of options, but we could put that as an example in the fund. And we have a lot of other things that we could put in the fund. And I think in a short period of time, we'd have one of the biggest funds. And, you know, some of them are pretty large, I must tell you. Some of like the Saudi Arabia fund is on the large side, but eventually we'll catch it. But we're going to create a lot of wealth for the fund.
It's a big deal, man. It's a big deal. Again, whether you like Trump or not, the fact that the world's largest economy did not have our own sovereign wealth fund. Are you kidding me? How, I thought about that last time. I was like, what? How does Saudi Arabia and Norway have their own sovereign wealth fund, but the United States doesn't? What the hell's going on? What the hell's going on? And you know what's also really annoying? Bill Clinton tried to put Social Security into the S&P 500, the $2 trillion we had at the time in reserves, into the S&P, and Congress didn't let him do it. If he had done that, we would have 10 trillion in reserves today. Instead of betting on American companies because it was too risky, which in reality, if America failed, if the Social Security reserve failed and the stock market failed, America would have failed. So how risky is it? We chose to buy American debt with that money instead. And it's like we bought treasuries. And now by 2033, I'll tell you, when I'm 80 years old, 60 years old, I'm not going to get the same amount of money that people that are that age right now are getting in Social Security. There's just no way. There's no way. Unless Elon somehow saves the country and cuts our debt. Like, there's just no way. So as a result of that, I think it makes a lot of sense for us to have a sovereign wealth fund. Now, how are we going to fund it? How are we going to monetize the assets on the balance sheet? I have no idea. I don't know if we're going to invest in startups, in big tech. I don't know. But the point is, as an idea, it's probably time to get it started because the United States is the wealthiest country in the world. And I know Norway has oil money. I know Saudi Arabia has oil money, but we've got a lot of money too. And we can find a way if we're gonna say that we want to have the best tech companies to probably put some capital behind them and just allow them to compound for our children's children in the future. That's my idea. That's my thought. So I don't know. We'll see how it plays out, but I do think it's not a horrible idea in terms of what it could be for the long-term potential of Palantir. The broader argument here is whether you agree with the sovereign wealth fund or not. That means Trump wants to get business back in America in a serious way. I mean, when you create a sovereign wealth fund, you imagine we own 50% of TikTok and it's in the fund and TikTok's worth a couple trillion 10 years from now. Like, it's a big deal, right? If we have the ability to do it. So it's just a question of getting that movement started. Wow, Reddit all-time highs, 6.2%. So what did I do in my Reddit covered call that I'm deeply underwater on? I bought 100 shares at 164. I sold a covered call at 175 because I didn't think Reddit would go up like more than 5x. Now Reddit is up almost 7x. I rolled it to 300 for January 2027. Is that where I rolled it to? Yeah, 2027. So, and I got paid a nice bit of premium. I got paid about $3,000 or sorry, $1,600 to do it. And look, at this point, if it freaking goes above 300, I will be happy with a double in 2 years. My average is 165. Given the premiums plus the doubling of the stock from 160 to 300, I would be more than happy. But if it goes to 300 in 2 years, I mean, guys, the stock is trading. It's kind of crazy for me to talk about multiples when we were looking at Palantir, but the stock's trading at a 33 times price of sales, and it's not Palantir, it's Reddit. I don't know who's buying this and what's keeping it alive, but whatever it is, it's something special. And so either I get called away at 300 in a couple years, or it comes below that. But we'll see how that plays out. S&P 500 right here, 600.7. So you got S&P that's currently up right now. What's happening with Amazon? Is there any news? I don't think there's any news on Amazon. It's up 1.3%. New all-time highs on Amazon, are very close to all-time highs. 241 is the all-time. We're at 240. I don't know what the news is. It might just be pumping with the JOLTS report, but I'll see if there's any headline on Amazon. Where is AMD? AMD is at 117. AMD is up 3% as well. AMD is up 3%. NVIDIA right here, 120.4, up 3.2, 120.4 on NVIDIA. Tesla right here at 387 as well. All right. Not bad. Not bad. David, I agree with your feelings on Palantir. 106.5. I think we're going to hit 107, folks. We got really close. Again, when Palantir gets 10 cents away, it tends to break through. So I do think we will see 107 later today. Farzad, thank you for the $10 super chat. Appreciate you, brother. Congrats, Palantir investors. Admit your coverage of the story has been ridiculously good over the years. Should have listened to you. LOL. Much love. Well, first of all, Farzad, you've done pretty damn good on Tesla, and you are my go-to source on YouTube to understand more about the company. So thank you for being here. And yeah, it's funny. I was talking with Farzad about this. I think when Palantir was $15, that's the first time we did a podcast. We will be covering Google tonight. So we'll be talking Google at 4:00 today. I think Farzad invited me to his channel when it was 15. And the key topics we discussed were, what is the ontology, Alex Karp's leadership, and then how big could Palantir be in terms of their ability to scale. And that's when the company was growing like 15%, 20%, not even 20%. It was at 13%, 2023 Q3. That was like one of their crappier quarters. But at the time, it was just, again, trying to forecast where this could go. And I didn't think it would happen this quick, but it looks like at least the thesis is playing out to what we thought it would be. And the street, again, we've analyzed it for a year now, why the street's giving it this premium. It's probably because the street just wants to be part of the story. The thesis was probably correct. The price action I didn't expect because of the thesis, but the street caught on to the thesis, the sort of collective thesis that we've all come up with over the past couple of years on why Palantir is special. And now they're paying a premium. And now they are paying a premium. I think we got Sachin in the chat. Let me read his comment right here. My year-end target is 200 for Palantir, which doesn't look too bad right now. Look, at this point, bro, would it really surprise anyone if we were at 200 by the end of the year? Like, would it really surprise you? I don't know. It wouldn't surprise me. I've also come to the conclusion, I've just accepted, and let me see if I can call Steve. Let's see if he picks up, because we can have this conversation. But I've just accepted that this stock is going to trade outside of the numbers, and that's okay. And maybe the numbers do become relevant one day and the street drops at 30, 40%, but you buy more on that, right? Like you just like that if you have a unicorn that's down 40, 50%, you buy more of the unicorn. So it's like one of those things where you can't really lose. Like if it falls 40%, okay, that sucks. I lost 40% of my net worth, but I believe in this for the next 10 years. So I will add. And if it goes up 40%, it's like, okay, cool. I get to see my net worth go up by 40%. So it's kind of coming to peace with where we're at on the stock. This is how it trades, and this is how it's probably always going to trade. And as long as they can keep executing on the growth, I think it'll continue to trade in this way. All right, I'm calling Steve. Let's see if he picks up. He might have a meeting, so he might not be able to. He did say he might be free around this 10 a.m. time, so let's see. I did get to talk to him in the morning, so I'm sure he has some certain thoughts on Palantir he can share to everybody. Steve, you there?
Yeah, I got 5 minutes.
Okay, awesome, cool. First of all, good morning. Thank you for spending some time on the show. Everyone in the chat, I've got 5,300 people with me. They are just curious on your perspective on Palantir's earnings.
My phone has not stopped this morning. You're the only call or text I've taken.
Wow, I'm humbled by that. It means a lot.
Yeah, this is ridiculous.
Do you say that in a way that's excited or say that in a way that's annoyed?
No, listen, I'm happy for everybody. I want everybody to make money. Okay. You don't get 27% upside in one day if people are not buying. this is not going to end well for people who are buying right now. I don't see it. This is now become a company. I mean, what's the valuation now? 260, 270 billion?
241.9.
Okay, so we're approaching 250.
Correct.
Incredible quarter. Nobody can take anything away. Everybody in retail was correct. Nobody understood this company better than retail, and very few analysts like Ives. They continue to exceed expectations. Their deal book is amazing. Their contract growth is amazing. Everything about it is phenomenal. This is, unlike other situations, this is a broken stock price, not a broken company. This company is firing all cylinders. At some point, things can get too expensive. And right now, Palantir's valuation does not make any sense, and it just goes higher. It's probably trading at 100 times revenue at this point.
About 90, but yeah, it's up there. Yeah.
I mean, if it keeps going up, I mean, the revenue was what, 2.8 billion for the year?
Yes.
So 95 times? I mean, this is getting extremely nosebleed. And all I'm saying is when you actually look at the profitability, and I understand growth. I was telling people at 8 that this was a steal. I get all that. So nobody can use that against me. What I am saying is $1 equals $1. 10% growth equals 10% growth. If Palantir is going to grow into a $10 billion profit center over the next 5 years, which I think it can, okay, they're expecting to do 1.5 to 1.8 billion in free cash flow next year. If they get to 10 billion in free cash flow in the next 5 years, it's entirely possible. And it would be incredible. But once again, you can't have I mean, I guess you can, but you shouldn't have $1 trillion market cap doing 10 billion in free cash flow, trading at 100 times free cash flow when there's other software companies that are generating more than 10 billion in free cash flow that are valued between 250 and 500 billion. And I'm not saying that this should be a $40 stock right now, but 105 to 106 is really crazy. 50 to 60 is a more realistic valuation.
What is your response to the analysts that have upgraded it today?
What are they going to do? Downgrade it after that quarter?
I'm just saying, we got 125 from Bank of America. How do you respond to that? Right? Like, if you pay Bank of America a ton of money for their proprietary research and they tell you to buy it because it's going to 125, what is your response to that on the opposite side?
My response to that is when you invest in any company, if you're going to buy a private company for yourself or you're going to invest in a public company, you're paying for all their future cash flow. And somebody needs to come out and show, even if Palantir gets to 15 billion in free cash flow over the next 5 years, show me a company that's trading anywhere near that valuation. None exist. I mean, Tesla, as much as I think that that's crazy, at least they're generating close to 100 billion in revenue. They're trading at 11 times sales. And so, Tesla's a unicorn that, I mean, you're telling me that Palantir is 10 times the unicorn of Tesla's? Like, come on.
Let me read the stat to you, and then I'll ask you a question. Palantir is now valued at over 235 billion, making it larger than American Express, Morgan Stanley, General Electric, McDonald's, and ServiceNow. It currently ranks as the 49th largest company in the world by market cap. So here's my question after hearing that. I understand that is kind of ridiculous. You understand this is ridiculous. Everyone in the chat, as bullish as you are, you're like, okay, yeah, probably, it's expensive here. However, is there an argument, and I'm not saying this is an argument to buy it at this price, obviously, but I'm saying, is there an argument that this is a once-in-a-lifetime company and $1 is $1, but there is a story associated with Palantir's $1 that's different than McDonald's $1, and that is why shares continue to stay elevated?
This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, past tense. This is not a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity here.
Well, I mean, obviously.
Hold on. What are you going to get for somebody that invests now? Double?
Well, I mean, if we go to $1 trillion, it's a 5x. But I get your point. Like, I get it. I understand.
No, but I mean, all right, it's a 105. So if this goes to 210, that's a double. That's not a once in a lifetime opportunity.
Yeah, of course.
Was a once in a lifetime opportunity or once in a decade opportunity.
No, but my question implies something differently. If it was a once in a lifetime opportunity,
understand what your question.
No, hold on. Let me finish. If it was a once in a lifetime opportunity at $8 or $20, and those people don't want to let go of their shares, wouldn't it continue to make the stock just more elevated at that point?
For them, it is still potentially an opportunity because even going from 105 to 210 is not a double for them. They're turning money over hand over fist. The people that are buying now, the upside, they missed it. I mean, buying here, think about how much work it's got to get to get to 150. I'm worried about people coming in now because everybody is talking about this company and hyping this up, but nobody cares about the financials of the balance sheet or the fact that share-based compensation was 34.6% in Q4, which is the highest level since Q2 2022, last time they exceeded 30%. I mean, the profitability and the revenue generated does not support the market cap. It just doesn't.
I don't think anyone's disagreeing with you there. I don't think anyone's disagreeing, but nonetheless, the street continues.
Yeah, I don't know if this comes down. I'd be shocked if this comes down below 80 at this point. But once again, stocks correct. And at some point, this is going to turn. At some point, people are going to say, you know what? I made 800% of my money. Maybe I should sell. At some point, this is going to go bad. And it's not going to stay bad forever. But the people coming in today are not going to be in a good situation. And I'm willing to bet a lot of people went levered on this, especially at 70 or so. So Tesla didn't go straight up. Meta didn't go straight up. No company has ever gone straight up. Palantir is not going to be the exception to the rule. At some point, there's going to be more sellers than buyers. And when that turns, the people that came in late are probably going to get
but okay, so that's the point. That's the biggest point of what you're saying. The people that came in late, if you bought it at 95 or 105 or 85, I get it. You could get hurt. But if you came in at 20 and there's not a reason to sell,
you have nothing to worry about at this point.
Well, so why this is, you enjoy it, right? You just
yeah, 100. Yeah, but I've never said that those people get hurt.
That's true.
I've never said those people get hurt. The people that got in early, the people that were right, they're going to keep winning. Because regardless if this goes to 120, 130, or goes down to 70 or 80, they're still up 300 to 600%.
Correct.
So it's not about them. I'm just saying that people coming on to CNBC talking about this company like it's a second coming, but without talking about, well, Oracle or Salesforce, look at the numbers that they're producing and look at their market cap. Maybe Palantir needs to take a breather. This just getting upgrade after upgrade because it's in a hot sector. I mean, it wasn't too long ago where you were saying if this doesn't guide for like 35 or 40%, we could have issues. You didn't guide it for 31% year-over-year growth on the top end.
But the analysts were expecting 26%. That's the difference.
Yeah, but those are fictitious numbers.
I mean, whatever, if it's fiction or not, Palantir beat the numbers regardless. So when you beat the numbers in the stock market, your stock tends to do well. Like, I get it's not 35, 40%, which I think it'll get there. I think they're sandbagging towards the end of the year. But the point is the analysts have undercounted this name for 5 years when it came to expectations. And Palantir's been able to beat them every time because they actually accelerated growth.
And I agree that Palantir continues to accelerate growth. That doesn't mean that the current valuation makes any sense. Even if they grow 50% revenue, where they get to 20 billion over the next 5 years?
No, I get it. No one's. I'm not. Again, I told you in the morning. I'm not arguing with you about valuation. I don't think anyone in the chat is arguing with you about valuation.
And I'm not saying that Palantir is a scam, but everybody, including the Bear Cave, who couldn't even answer you on what ontology was. Everybody who got this wrong deserved to get it wrong, and everybody who got it right deserved to get it right. This is an amazing company that's doing amazing things. But just because you're doing amazing things, sometimes the valuation can get away. And I think everybody should celebrate this today. But I don't think that they should take it for granted.
I think that's a fair take.
That's my biggest thing right here.
That's a fair take. I don't think that's a horrible take at all.
Everybody should be excited. Everybody should be congratulating each other that have been in this since 10, 20, or 30, even 40, because it wasn't an easy investment then. It was hard to have the conviction to stay in when it was rocky, when this was not a household name. There was a lot of people with a lot of conviction. But at the same time, this price point puts you in the same conversation as Salesforce. It puts you in a conversation potentially in the next 6 months as an Oracle. Now, you look at the numbers. I'm not saying Palantir can't grow into those companies. I'm not saying that they can't even generate more revenue or more profit than those companies in the future. But the difference is you're paying now for all that growth, and it's already priced in. And even if Palantir scales to 10 billion in free cash flow, they're still not generating more free cash flow than Salesforce, which is only valued at $340 billion. And they're still growing their top line by double digits. I mean, it's just, I'm worried about people coming in now, people who just came in, and I'm worried that people are upgrading this just because of a story without actually doing the due diligence.
There's definitely people chasing the stock right here, but for the people that have been in, I guess your takeaway
this is great for people who've been in.
Yeah,
it's phenomenal.
Yeah, look, I think you have a fair take. Ultimately, you're saying, look, the valuation's up there, which no one's disagreeing with, and it would be hard to seriously establish a position at these levels, even though we're seeing that happen today, up 20%. And your concern, and correct me if I'm wrong, is the people that are buying today at 105 are going to get hit badly. The people that have been in the story, they can sit back and just see how it plays out and enjoy the ride.
At some point, the probability is at some point this is going lower. I mean, nothing continuously goes up. Even Bitcoin did not continuously go up. Like, there's never been an investment that just continuously went up. And right now, there's limited upside. I mean, I think that that's a fair realization that there's limited upside at this point in the short term. And people who are buying are chasing at this point. And that's what worries me, because I don't want people to get turned off to the market. And I want people to make money and invest in their future. But at some point, valuations have to matter. They always have, and they always will. Things can be irrational for a long time, but eventually everything that's irrational tends to correct.
Well, one thing that might be happening is also the people that you're worried about buying today might be people with deep pockets, aka Wall Street, over retail. So that's one thing that I think we have to acknowledge as well. It might be, hedge fund managers that decide they want to get part of the story. And the final thing I think we have to acknowledge, Steve, is that Palantir is
powerful as fuck.
And that's it.
You did not just.
All right, I'll let you get out of here. Steve, thank you for your commentary. A lot of people appreciate it. And yeah, congrats. You're still a Palantir shareholder, at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy for everybody. I really hope that people go into this now knowing that at any point, profit taking could happen. And at any point, this can start a downtrend. And if Palantir doesn't exceed expectations in any quarter in 2025, the whipsaw to the downside could be violent.
Real quick, because I just want you to tell everyone what you told me last night, because everyone's asking the covered call situation. I mean, how are you going to navigate that?
I'm going to write a check.
There you go. If everyone wanted to hear Steve was going to write a check, you just heard it. He's going to write a check.
Have a choice. I mean, I just did the math. Like, obviously, I'm going to wait a couple of days at this point because I took a gamble waiting. Doesn't hurt me to continue to wait a couple of days to see what happens. But right now, I can write a check and save 50% because basically, if I roll and I roll out to 125 and write a check for the difference, the premiums are so high that I'm still up a huge amount of money that I'm saving myself. So it's just, look, it is what it is. I knew what I was getting myself into, and it got away from me like other people. And I have no problem doing that. It is what it is. I made a mistake. There's a way out of it. And if it keeps going up, I can keep doing it. I'm going to have to spend a little bit of money, but you know what? Or maybe a lot of money, but you have to spend money to make money. And that's what happens if you want to write cover calls. Sometimes they will get away from you. And that's all there is to it. But that doesn't mean that the valuation makes sense.
All right, Steve, appreciate it. Thank you so much.
I'll talk to you later.
Talk to you later. All right, we are transitioning to Dan Ives. I am going to be playing the stream on Twitter. Let me know if there's an audio issue. I'm going to be muted on my side on YouTube. There might be like a little 5-second delay, but everything should be good. Let me know in the chat if anything is an issue, and we'll get to talk to Dan Ives for about 15 minutes.
Obviously, that one is doing very well today, up 24%. So I'm sure you're having a good time.
No, it's a good look. It's great because it's just like it's another validation of the story. Because just sometimes like just forget the stock, right? Like in other words, this is one of those names. My view is like the next 5-10 years, they're gonna be one of the core players in this AI revolution. But even though you've seen it the last few quarters, especially from a timing perspective, you really needed to start to see some like inflection quarters. And I think what we saw last night, it reminds me of like some of those early days, like what we saw from Salesforce. I'd say Microsoft and the cloud transition, Apple as they were kind of really starting to monetize in the services side. Like I'm just trying to explain, like I kind of view a more historical context as like a huge validation.
Awesome. I appreciate you for starting us out here, Dan. I want to throw it over to Amit pretty early on. I know people are super excited for this conversation. We're literally minutes in and we have 500 people. Amit's live on YouTube right now with 5,000 people. I'm just going to say he has 5,000 people live and only 800 likes on the live stream. So I think everyone should go in and like it. But I think there's nobody better to kind of have this Palantir conversation with Amit. I want to kick it right over to you and jump into the conversation if you have any questions or thoughts.
Yo, what's up?
What's up, Dan? How you doing?
Yo, good to talk, man. Great to talk to you today.
Good to talk to you as well. First of all, Evan, thank you for organizing these spaces. It's really, really special. This is a new form of media, so I really, really appreciate Evan and Wolf getting this up and running for us.
Amit,
Dan,
are you wearing like, dude, you going funky on the gear today? Like, are you going conservative? Like, what direction?
can you guys hear me right now?
Yeah. Yo,
Yeah, we got you.
What direction you doing on the gear, man? You going funky, cool, laid back? Like what's the gear choice today?
Well, Dan, I think you'll appreciate this, and it actually segues really well into my question. So I had a meetup in New York City a couple weeks ago, and I got to meet a lot of people that have been following the content, following the Palantir journey. And I had a lovely woman who bought Palantir at $7, has not sold a single share. Her name is Scarlett, and she knitted me a hat with the Palantir logo on it. So I am wearing that hat right now.
Nice.
And it's a bit emotional because these are people that took a chance on a stock when Wall Street didn't believe. And obviously they've kept up with the independent content creators like me and Arnie that have been kind of touting the story. And there's life-changing amounts of money that they are making on believing in this story. And so my first question for you, Dan, is we could not do it alone. I know you give a lot of credit to retail and we appreciate that, but we needed someone on the street to have our back. I mean, we needed someone to go on CNBC and Bloomberg and actually paint the vision and the story that you've done. What has it been like since you started coverage at around 15 and now to 100 in terms of the institutional awareness of the name? And do you think it's only going to accelerate over the next 10 years?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to also remember the biggest issue is like when it all started, remember, like, I've covered tech stocks 25 years, like what, like 150 names or more. Like it was probably the only one up there would be Tesla in terms of that initial hate, the emails. I'm talking institutional, right? Like just insane type stuff, like the hatred. So it started off extremely contentious. As we all know, it's very negatively viewed in the street. What's amazing is that contrast that with today, it's still not heavily owned institutionally. But the thing is that because of what it makes up, especially on mid cap index, this is one where even if you were negative on the Palantir story, these numbers, along with just its weighting on the index, you're basically forced into seriously owning it or doing next level work. Because if you miss this next leg, like it's like I told you, like I believe it's $1 trillion market cap in the next 3 to 4 years. If you miss that move, I mean that's almost just an absolute disaster if you're a fund manager.
So the people that hear $1 trillion in 4 years, their immediate analysis is Dan is smoking something. How do you respond to that?
Because my view is like, okay, remember it always goes back to, and me and you've taught us many times, like if you looked at just 1 year valuation, you've missed out on every transformational tech stock the last 20 years. From Amazon to Apple, Microsoft. And as I always say, the haters, they hate NASDAQ at 2,000, despise it at 20,000, black swan events, the usual, right? So it was like, we know, like haters hate. That said, this is one you have to figure out, okay, if we believe there's 2 trillion of CapEx over the next 3 years, what percent does Palantir get out of that? What percent of a lot of these broader AI deployments is Palantir getting? When you you have to model this out the next 3, 4, 5 years. When can this company get to 10 billion in rev? What does free cash flow look like at that? Is it 4 or 5 billion or more? It's no different than what I did with Tesla going back a decade, right? Like, it's like, it's the same type of analysis. When Tesla's sitting there with 50,000 cars and losing massive amounts of money, you can never see where we are today, but you had to see onto the other side. That's what I do. Look, that's how I handhold investors through it, right?
Yeah, I think that's very fair. And I think the other thing that's interesting about this, and this is kind of my next question for you, is Palantir is trading at a market cap or a price to sales that is incredibly elevated. I mean, they're more expensive than American Express, McDonald's, yada, yada. However, one thing I read in your equity reports and a lot of the other people on the street that have done a really good job analyzing the business is that there is a legitimate technology moat that cannot be understated. And it actually, like, it's hard to differentiate yourself as a tech company because there's so much commoditization, but this is actually differentiating itself. Do you think that also justifies the premium multiple that Palantir has?
Well, of course, because the street is basically saying, okay, they've monetized 2% of what they're going to monetize on the enterprise side. What happens when they monetize 10, 15%? Where do numbers go? The government business is a massive reacceleration because essentially you're almost going to have you're basically having a paradigm shift within US government, and Palantir is going to play a huge role. So when you put them together, look, you're doing 1.7 billion of free cash flow next year. Like if you go back like 18 months ago, like the view is it's half that. So I'm just trying to give you examples of like you almost have to build out where this thing could look like in the next 3, 4, 5 years. That is the way. And that's why I say, like, I believe it's the next Oracle, it's the next Salesforce. What I mean by that is that those companies are so instrumental around the globe in enterprise buildouts. Salesforce, Oracle. I believe that's kind of the future for Palantir because of the moat.
Yeah, I agree. And I think a lot of the other equity analysts that I've been reading that were a little late to the party compared to yourself have also
No.
said, yeah, this whole moat
You know,
thing is real.
But even on that, I just quickly, like I was looking at all the analyst reports from today, and there was a lot of price target increases, but pretty much every one of them has
Sell
neutral
ratings
ratings or
or
sell
sell. I
ratings.
know, I
It's
know.
only
Dude, to be honest, I
yeah.
mean, to be honest with you, I almost feel bad. It's like if you're an analyst and you've missed a move from 12 to 100 and been negative the whole time, to be honest, man, I don't even know what to say. You know what I mean?
Dan, can you give us some insight into this game? Like, are you having a really hard conversation with your boss if that happens? Like, what happens to these analysts when they miss something like this?
look, I mean, look, it all depends on like inside baseball. I mean, always viewed things like, to me, it's all about my reputation and being right. And if I'm wrong, admitting I'm wrong and, and changing that accordingly. Everyone's going to be wrong. Okay. But the emotional bear thesis on Palantir, it's got, it clearly, like, it almost took on a life of its own, right? Like in terms on Wall Street. And I think it's a good example of, you have to do your own work. You have to have conviction in your thesis. But dude, you gotta do your own checks, right? It's like, it's my view, like, all the conviction was like talking to customers, talking to those in the channel, and also like really having confidence in just like the Palantir team. It's my view of like, from Carp to the whole crew, Glazer, everyone, Sham, the whole crew. It's like, I think it's probably one of the best overall management teams that I've ever encountered in tech. And I think that says something, relative to so many of these large cap names.
I'll give you guys my last question, then I'll let you talk about Tesla and all that other stuff. Dan, I guess we just want to piggyback off that last point you made. Management and culture. I know you've got to visit Palantir, meet the C-suite and all that stuff. I mean, is there anything you can tell people who are invested in the company that maybe something they don't know about the quality of management and why you believe in them so much to execute?
I mean, they're rare. Like very, very rare in terms of like the conviction in that they could build something better than others. Their philosophy is the right one. Like, a lot of what they're doing is basically without direct sales force and without true marketing. And I think that's the other thing, is like, what's amazing is they've been able to do this almost homegrown. It's like a restaurant doesn't advertise. And it just speaks to like, I think we're only through where this is all heading. And also, I'd say, like, and I know we've talked about it, and you could be humble and whatever, but it's like, Arnie, you, the retail community, like, it's like, this is now like a like, in the view of like tech over the last like 30, 40 years, we're now talking like historical type moves. And retail was just so way ahead of institutional. As much as people label it, they're like, "Oh, it's meme or call." I think that's almost an insult. I actually disagree. I mean, people like yourselves, like, the technology deep dives and the understanding of what they're doing. That's not meme and cult. Actually, I think it was just dialed in, peeled away the onion, and just understood where the story was going. So that's the one that I'd give credit, like, look, to you and to many others in the retail community, just like that were just so steadfastly ahead of this.
Thank you, Dan. Appreciate it. Thank you,
Yo,
Edwards, for having this spaces. It was awesome.
No, I
yo,
appreciate you guys for joining. First of all, yeah, Dan, sorry.
no, I just want to say, admit, it's a congrats.
I appreciate you, Dan. Thanks for having our back. It means the world. Thank you so much.
Congrats to both. I thought this was a perfect day to have this conversation. You guys should make sure you're following Dan and Amit. Amit's live stream, if you're on there, you should make sure you're subscribed to his live stream as well if you can still hear this. Again, 4,800 people in there, and
I
I
feel
feel
like
like
he
he
should
should have more
maybe change his
subscribers.
name to Goat. Like, just like, instead of his picture, just put a little goat picture.
All right, hold on there. All right, you're the one with the 30-year career in tech that's been having a pretty incredible. Really, I mean, Dan, let's just call a spade a spade. There's only two people I know that called the bull market over the past 2 years. One of them is called Dan Ives, and the other one is called Tom Lee. And you
Tom
guys
Lee the goat. Tom Lee the goat.
You
Exactly.
guys are best friends for a reason. And so people who have listened to you have made money in the past 2 years, and people who haven't made that much money. So shout out to you. You are the GOAT. Appreciate you.
See ya.
I want to ask a question on that.
All right, cool. There we go. That was our Spaces with Dan Ives. Got some good coverage from him this morning. Palantir, we are still holding 105, folks. We are still holding 105. Grab is not stopping. 13%. 38 million shares in volume. This is a big move, and I think whatever news publications put out the leaks today that Grab's acquiring one of their competitors, the market's taking it very seriously. You don't get a 13% move. I mean, this honestly, Grab barely moves like 1 or 2% a day, right? It's just like it moves on earnings. That's it. It doesn't really have catalysts. This is a big catalyst. This is a narrative shaping catalyst if it actually happens, especially where their profitability and adjusted EBITDA and free cash flow is now inflecting up and to the right. So it's a big deal for Grab. If we can close above $5, that would be amazing. Up 13% here right now. NVIDIA, 119.44. That's up 2.3%. Palantir, again, still holding 105. And then Robinhood, we did hit 53. Right now, we're at 52.84. We'll talk more about a bunch of these stocks and the macro, but we do have some coverage on CNBC by another analyst, Brent Thill, on Palantir. Let's hear what he has to say as well.
The fundamental limit to Palantir's growth at this point is, can anyone besides America adopt at the rate America's adopting? The fundamental limit for Palantir is, can we keep up with the adoption that you're seeing, especially in U.S. commercial, which is just like, we do not have enough people. We do not have, we have a nascent sales force. We're doing our best. We have all these companies that are training on installing Palantir. They're getting up and running. We're doing our best.
That was just last week, our interview with Palantir CEO Alex Karp here at the New York Stock Exchange, when I asked him how big the company can ultimately get. You got a taste of that last night with earnings. Palantir now the best performing stock in the S&P 500 right now, hitting new record highs. The company reporting strong results and guidance fueled by what it calls untamed organic growth in demand for its AI products. That said, our next guest isn't convinced. Jefferies analyst Brent Thill joins us now. He's got an underperform rating on Palantir, did raise price target to 60 from 28. Brent, why are you sticking with underperform on this name?
Kudos to Palantir on the fundamentals, Sarah, but in the last 20 years in software, there's no name that's ever sustained this multiple. It trades over 55 times revenue, even if growth accelerated. Again, this company's growing 30%. It's not like it's growing 50 to 100. They're growing 30. And if you think about other stories that's got to these multiples, they didn't sustain, and growth at some point faded. And when that happens, the multiple implodes. So ultimately, it's not necessarily a call on Palantir. I think our view is we run a balanced portfolio and we like other names. You can buy Meta at 25 times earnings, not revenue, earnings, and get an amazing return and play the AI theme through Meta. You can own Google at 12 times EBITDA. You can own Microsoft at 25 times earnings. So effectively, our client base is more valuation sensitive. I've gotten 3 emails from institutional investors on this name. It's owned by mainly retail and the insiders of Palantir. So yes, is there an opportunity for institutional investors to own this at some point? Is that the next catalyst for the stock? Maybe. But ultimately, I go back to right now, the names that our clients are owning are names where they can have support and valuation. So I'm not against owning some of these higher flyers. But again, I think it has to be a lower percentage of your portfolio because ultimately we've seen this movie before. And
here's my issue. If it doesn't make sense at 105, it definitely doesn't make sense at 60 either. There's not like some dramatic difference in terms of the growth that would justify 60 to 105. So I would have respected him more if he just kept his $28 price target, because that's where he probably believes the stock should be trading. In reality, I don't think he has any clue about how to really analyze the stock, because if you're just going to bump it up another $30 off of what? off of another couple of percentages of growth. Like it's either you believe in the thesis or not. So it is weird, the price target increase and still being bearish. But obviously I can also understand the argument that at $100, he thinks it is expensive, but it's also expensive at 60. It's not like this thing gets that much cheaper at 60. Okay, instead of trading at 80 times price of sales, at 70 times price of sales, right? So I think there's a more fundamental argument here that a lot of these analysts are not focusing on.
Does not end well on multiples.
But shouldn't we talk about why it's such a high flyer and the fundamentals of the business, which, okay, you mentioned the 30% growth. My question on Palantir is anyone else doing what they're doing in terms of the AI services they're offering, primarily to the U.S. government, which are now they're scaling across enterprise? And you heard from Alex Karp what the demand looks like.
Yeah, I mean, look, they have a unique solution from the application to the infrastructure. It is no doubt a unique story. And in that sense, the question is, again, how broad is this? And again, there's a lot of vendors that have AI solutions and AI infrastructure. So there's other ways to play this AI theme. It's not just Palantir. You can't listen to him and say, oh, he's the only game in town. That's not true. There's a lot of other games in town. So if you look at AI infrastructure, right, you've got Amazon, Microsoft, Snowflake. There's a number of assets you can own. Yes, if you wanted to complete a Palantir-like solution, you'd effectively have to take multiple solutions and stitch them together. So we believe Dr. Karp on that view. So we're not challenging the fundamentals. What we're trying to do is separate the fundamentals from the valuation. And again, those are important to do. I've been burned so many times in the past by sticking with, hey, it can keep running on the multiple. Now the multiple today is 55 times next year's number on revenue, not earnings, not on EBITDA, on revenue.
Yeah, 55 years worth of revenues is rich, to say the least. Listen, Brent, I applaud your willingness to sort of call it out. That said, I mean, they are accelerating in terms of their growth rate, 64% now for the commercial business. Investors always like that. And I can go back to the mid to late 90s as well. Yahoo, yeah, wouldn't have wanted to own it at 50 times revenues. I think it traded there, maybe even more. But Amazon, I would have, because, a lot of people didn't necessarily recognize the full opportunity. So give me your sense there.
Yeah, I mean, look, we all do TAM analysis, but now that the market cap's over 200 billion, you look at a company like CrowdStrike, where half of their, it's got less than half the market cap, is growing mid-20s to 30% and has good margins, and you don't have to pay, you can pay a fraction of the multiple. So I guess my point is, it's okay to own a piece of this, but my point is, we think there's higher conviction stories where I sleep at night not worrying about where the multiple is at. And ultimately, everyone's painting this big TAM picture. Look, if we did this across the rest of software and anyone in AI, we'd have multiples that are unsustainable for the industry. And so, again, I think we saw Snowflake get to 50 times revenue. We saw Datadog get to these multiples. And those multiples ultimately corrected. They went from 50 to less than 10. And so, again, I think that growth isn't going to slow in the short term. But again, I think investors are acting like this is a company that's growing 50% on the top line. They're growing 30 and they guided to 30. And maybe they can accelerate that growth this year. And so we're not disputing, again, the fundamentals. It's just the valuation is beyond anything we've seen. And it's basically 2 to 3 times more expensive than the next single expensive stock in software. So there's another cohort of companies like Samsara, Snowflake. You go through the list, there's a lot of great companies where investors can make good returns where you're not exposing yourself to that level of multiple. Right. And again, I go back to David, the institutional investor community, they're not involved.
Yep.
They're not. And effectively, this is a retail, this has been fueled by a lot of the retail side of the house. And you can hear this company doesn't really talk to investors. They don't go to conferences. They don't return emails from institutional investors, but they will sit and compliment the retail investor all day long. And so I go back to like our client base are institutional investors.
I get it. I get it. Charismatic CEO, memification to a certain extent, but it's working, Brent. We'll have to continue the conversation.
I was wrong.
He also really doesn't like short sellers and has called them drug addicts, the other class of shareholders. Yeah.
Well,
all right, thank you, Brent. Brent Thill with Palantir up.
I mean, dude, Every historical B2B software enterprise. You know how to interpret what he said about they don't respond to institutional emails? That's Palantir saying, fuck your steak dinners. We are not going to go out with you and wine and dine you so you could upgrade our fucking stock. That's what Palantir is saying by not responding to your institutional investor emails. They're saying, you know what? We're going to invite Amit to AIPCon and we're going to have him host the halftime show because we think that's just a better use of our time than engaging with Jeffries, who's going to say the same shit they've been saying for the past 2 years because they actually don't care about Palantir. They care about getting a bonus at the end of the year. That's really what Palantir is saying by not responding to these institutional analysts. And so look, he can be mad all he wants about that, but every enterprise software company that has gone down the route of capitulating to how Wall Street wants them to act, how Wall Street wants them to engage with investors, none of those have become the types of unicorns that Palantir potentially could become. And Palantir has a long runway to go. It is going to be a volatile runway. But the reason they're here today is because they're doing it their way. It's because they're doing it their way. Now, having said that, I don't think what he said was that different than what Steve said, which is, hey, fundamentals are incredible. Valuation is up there. I think all of us in the chat also agree with that. Fundamentals are incredible. Valuation's up there. But the inevitable conclusion to that, in my opinion, is as follows. If you got in early, you sit back and enjoy the ride. And if you need to take some profits, take some damn profits. But if you want to hold on, you hold on because it looks like it can be a very exciting ride over the next decade. If you're just getting in, I would be a little hesitant given the premium you're paying. And maybe it works out in the short term. Maybe it works out in the long term. And there's a dip in the short term. Like that's more of a who knows what's going to happen. But if you've been here for a while, I think the story just gets better and better and better. And the stock will do whatever the hell the stock wants to do. I mean, that ultimately is up to the market. But the story, what's in Palantir's control is not the stock. They can't really affect that at the end of the day. But they can affect the execution to inevitably make the street, retail, whatever, realize that the stock deserves to be owned. And what they showed off last night is getting enough people to be excited to the tune of 26% on the day. We are up almost 30% to believe that Palantir deserves to be an investment opportunity. So there, I think that's the conclusion of it. It's really not that complicated, but it's kind of fun to see all the analysts try to figure out how to make sense of this. It is pretty incredible. This is one of the largest single day increases Palantir has had after an earnings. I think we had something similar to this last quarter. I think it was maybe 23%, 22. No, maybe we were a little bit higher, 29%. But so far, 2 quarters in a row, we've been blessed by a stock that goes up more than 20%. And will that happen every quarter? I don't know. But for the past 2 quarters, it has indeed happened. Q3 and Q4 of 20. And on the most volatile days, August 5th and then February 3rd, the Japanese yen trade and then a trade war. That's when Palantir reports. And they end up reporting with some pretty amazing numbers. Pretty cool stuff. Pretty cool stuff right here. And that's what we got going on right now. Okay, so Grab. Again, we talked about it during the day. I know a lot of people are looking at this and they're saying why it's running. Someone gave a super chat and said, can you talk a little bit about Grab? The reason Grab is running is because of a acquisition rumor that is out there for them to potentially buy one of their largest customers. And if that ends up happening, that could change the entire narrative of Grab. So if anyone's curious about that, that is why it's happening. And I'll talk more about that probably later on the market close. Let me just link a Twitter account again for those that really want to deep dive more into Grab. I'm going to link a Twitter account right here that you should follow. And this guy's been tweeting about it all morning. He's from the region. He understands Southeast Asia very well. So you can follow him right here to get some more updates. And I'll probably do some more updates later throughout the week as we get more details on this potential acquisition. Matan, thank you. He says shorts have yet to cover. Still the same 50 million available to short on IBKR from when Palantir was 60 about 2 weeks ago. Yeah, so that's fair. Shorts are probably doubling down on this. They are not. I doubt the shorts are covering on this. I mean, maybe there's a little bit of cover. There's definitely not a cover for a squeeze because there's only like 80 million shares out of the 2.2 billion that are actually sold short. If I was a short, I mean, you have 2 options. Either you admit you were wrong and you say, screw it, I'm not gonna try playing this game anymore. Or you say, this is ridiculous, I'm doubling down. And given the mentality of shorts, I think they're gonna say, this is ridiculous, I'm doubling down. So I would not be surprised to see the short float increase. But if we get to 110, 115, that's when I think the shorts start to think, okay, this is getting pretty ridiculous, right? And that's when they might get out of it just because they don't want to lose their balls, quite frankly. So I think we're gonna have to see even a higher move for the shorts to get really upset. Because right now on a 1-day move, the shorts don't believe it. The shorts don't believe this is gonna sustain 26%. And so I guess over the coming months, we'll see if it can. But I think right now shorts are probably doubling down a little bit more. It is Gab Growth, not Grab Growth. Gab Growth is his username. He just happens to also be bullish on Grab, even though his username is Gab Growth. Shout out to Evan right here in the chat. It was a great Twitter Spaces. Evan, are you still live with Dan Ives? Or is that ended? That was great, Evan, dude. That was awesome. Dan is such a pro. It was great talking to him. Okay, it just ended. It just ended. Yeah, dude, Evan, that was great. Thank you for doing that, brother. That was so awesome. It was cool to get coverage from him on a day like this. Evan is creating new media. He's basically becoming our generation's CNBC and Bloomberg in terms of bringing all these people together. So shout out to Evan. Thank you for doing that. By the way, for those that don't know, Evan is Evan. What's your cost basis on NVIDIA? It's like $10 or something. Evan is early NVIDIA. He doesn't have like 100,000 shares, but it doesn't matter because he's up like 10,000%. So it looks nice on the Robinhood brokerage statement. But he's been early in NVIDIA. 7.5. Look at that, dude. 7.5 average. I mean, that's fun, dude. That's the funny thing is that's the same thing for a lot of people with Palantir, dude. 7.5 average. Okay, here's a fun story for the chat. Here's a fun story for the chat, or a fun question for the chat. Describe me a time where you bought Palantir at that $6 to $9 range. Like, where were you? What were you doing? Were you, I don't know, at a party? Were you bored? Like, I've used this story many times. I have a bunch of examples, but one of the most examples that I remember the most was I was on my way to the chiropractor because my back had a bunch of issues in 2021. And I just remember I would check up the stock. I didn't have a lot of money, but I would just buy 100 shares here and there. Not even 100 shares. It'd be like 30 shares, 40 shares. It'd be whatever I could afford because I was pretty broke back in 2021. And just swiped up while I was driving. I would be at the chiropractor. There usually was an hour-long wait. I would swipe up again. It was just like that. That's the biggest memory I have in 2022 when the shit was hitting the fan and I was buying. Now, I spent a lot of money buying in the $12 range. Remember, my average was 25, so it took a long time to DCA. But it was after Cathie had liquidated the portfolio, and I got so upset at her, I sold all of my ARK, and I bought Palantir at $10. And I sold ARK at like $88, and Palantir's now at 80. ARK is at 40, but or 50. So that's when I remember buying a decent chunk when it was falling Bradley. And I also bought a ton when it was at 25 in 2021, 23. So, and then obviously those were pretty bad buys at the time. But those were the memories back in 2022. It was doing random stuff, driving, waiting at the chiropractor and just swiping up, even if it was for like 10 shares. It was just anything you could put into it at the time. Daniel says I was here on the channel. I love it. I was watching your videos about Palantir. I love it. Thank you for being here. Rezul said I was buying at 22. Beneficial said I bought Palantir at IPO for $10 and sold at $10. That's my story. Of course, I bought back in later, but still never held like a clown. Yeah, it's hard, dude. It's hard to hold on to it. You've done very well with Hood, though. So, I mean, I wouldn't stress too much about it, but it's just been a crazy, crazy journey. Protoman says I was at work. Reem says it was my beginning in stocks and now I'm mad about it. It was my beginning too. I mean, I think everyone made plenty of mistakes on this name because it was one of the first big winners for everybody. And we all obviously would have bought a lot more if we knew it was going to be this much of a winner, but it's, it's doing what it's doing and it's getting rewarded very heavily by the street. Tess says I was buying heavy at home, arguing with ill-informed trolls. Chris says I was walking in my town and listening to it in the morning. Michael says I was returning bottles after work to get that extra $15 to $20 to put into Palantir to get those 3 extra shares. See, this is why the story is so special. I mean, that comment right there is why the story is so special. I feel you, bro. I was, I had a job as well, and it was not a lot of money that was coming in every month. I had my own expenses. Thankfully, I was able to live at home, so I didn't have to pay rent. But whatever I had left at the end of every month, just tried to dump in whatever we could. Davis says, I was rejected to all my school programs, just was broken up with and working as a server. No direction in life, felt like rock bottom, felt like a loser. I was at rock bottom. For those that don't know, Davis is sitting very nicely on a decent chunk of Palantir. And I know that because I'm a good friend of his. But yeah, I remember at the time, bro, I remember you were one of the first people I interacted with on Twitter. You were working at Cheesecake Factory. You just got broken up with. And And the only thing you were kind of doing was buying Palantir. And so looks like she shouldn't have broken up with you, because I don't know if her new man is sitting on 7 figures of Palantir. I don't know if that's happening. I was convincing the wife to double down after having a bag at a $25 average and bought the average down to 11 over the following years. She has the biggest smile nowadays. See, that you're talking about brownie points with the wife. That's some freaking brownie points with the wife. That's some freaking brownie points with the wife. I sold both my kidneys to buy at $5. Dude, I think the low was 584. 584. That was the absolute low that day. Do you guys remember December 2022? It just got so bad, dude. Sentiment was so bad for everything in the market. That was the day where it had bottomed. There was an inside joke. There was a Seeking Alpha article that came out that says Palantir's going at $5, and all of us in the community were shitting on the article because the article was like trending. And then that day when we saw 580, we were like, well, I guess this article is about to be right. Like, it was that bad, dude. December 2022, Taco Bueno parking lot, traveling for work. I bought it at $6.48. Time and time again, these are the stories. These are the stories. And it's just incredible, dude. It's just incredible. I was dead broke and I just got broken up with during COVID, buying Top Shot NFTs, trying to get rich, lost it all, had to gig work to make it back, found Palantir, found Amit's channel, up $200,000. It's just so special, bro. It is so freaking special. Kenneth says lowest I bought was at 632. Yeah, man, it's a hell of a story. It's a hell of a story. And this is how the story is playing out. All right, I think we should talk about some macro, because we didn't get to talk about macro. So let's get into some of this tariff trade war stuff. Apparently, Trump is talking with China today. So Trump is going to talk with China. If anything goes well from this call, we are going to get hopefully a resolution on tariffs. Maybe China doesn't impose their retaliatory tariffs because the United States doesn't impose tariffs. And that could send the market up even more after hours when we get a notice from that meeting. So that's going to be very important. We'll keep an eye on that. Now, for those that are wondering what are the tariffs about, this is what China did yesterday. This was at about 12 a.m. China hit back against Trump's 10% tariffs, announcing new import duties and export controls in response. Starting February 10th, China will impose 15% tariffs on U.S. coal and liquefied natural gas. Let me check if Next Decade is down on that news. Next Decade, yep, is down on that news. So all the LNG players are probably down on that. And 10% tariffs on crude oil, agricultural equipment, and automobiles, according to the country's finance ministry. Beijing is also tightening its grip on critical matters, placing export controls on rare earths and exotic metals, including, I'm not even going to try to say those names. I'm going to spare you guys. I'm not even going to try. I'm not saying those names. These are resources where China dominates global supply. These actions come after Trump's tariffs officially took effect at midnight. While he delayed the 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico by 30 days, China received no such extension. Now, what happened with China and Canada? Well, it was a little bit of a deal that Trump got done. So after meeting with Trump, Mexico's president stated that the conversation was productive and announced that Mexico will immediately deploy 10,000 National Guards to border the combat drug trafficking. As a result, the tariffs have been paused for a month. With Canada, Trudeau said he would Trump said he would delay the tariffs if Canada and Trudeau can include appointing a fentanyl czar, designating Mexican cartels as terrorist entities, implementing 24/7 border monitoring, and establishing a joint U.S.-Canadian strike force on organized crime and fentanyl, and launching a $200 million intelligence initiative. So it looks like Trump got what he wanted out of the deal, and the deal was primarily getting Canada and Mexico to take the border more seriously, which is why the tariffs have been delayed. And if they execute on that promise over the next month, the tariffs will continue to be delayed. Bitcoin right here is below 100,000, 99.3. And maybe some type of agreement can come with China today that also gets rid of the tariffs, which is why I think the market is up right now, because they're kind of anticipating that Trump's been negotiating and he'll negotiate again with China. But if we don't get any deal with them, then, we might see a little bit of volatility after hours today as well. So I guess we're going to see. We're going to see how this ends up playing out in the context of the macro. Soundhound right here is up 10%. Grab still holding $5, baby, up 12%. Hoodie trying to get back to 53, 52.82. A lot of you guys are asking for Hood's earnings predictions. I will talk more about that on Saturday with Roy and Tanner on the Hood Weekly. I'm not going to be able to do it on Monday because I'm going to be in California. So instead of Hood Weekly on Monday, we're going to do it on Saturday. We'll go very in depth on the numbers. But look, I'm expecting a phenomenal quarter. I think the fact that they gave out $5 million of Bitcoin and Dogecoin to people on New Year's Eve basically was them telling us we made so much damn money that we don't even need to worry about this extra 5 million. You know, tech companies like need to scrap $1 here just to hit their numbers. Hood's like, we can give back 5 million to our users because we made so much money that we're going to beat every estimate, even if we lose 5 million giving back to our users. That was the biggest telltale for me, that they're going to crush earnings going into Q4. That, along with the fact that analysts raised expectations to 930 million, which, look, we did the numbers. We'll do the numbers on Saturday again, but the numbers, I mean, when you do it the way we've done it, and, you know, me, Tanner, Roy, Josh, who's also a big Hood investor, we're pretty sophisticated in finding out these numbers. Like we've been right for the past couple of quarters. I was off by like 20 million last quarter because I forgot to include the contra revenue. They're going to do close to 950 million in revenue. That's what it looks like. And that's why the street is estimating 930 million. Now, maybe we're off and it comes in at 925 or 935, but it looks very likely that they're going to hit at least 930, if not more. And this estimate was 650 a couple months ago. So the street obviously has redid their numbers as well, which means they're going to put up close to $1 billion in revenue. Palantir last night almost put up $1 billion in revenue. They're at 828 million. In a couple quarters, Palantir is going to be putting up $1 billion quarters. And so when you start getting to the point where you can put up $1 billion in a quarter or close to that, you start being taken very seriously. Very, very seriously. So I think Hood's going to do well. I think their January numbers are going to be good. And I think they're going to guide to a exceptional 2025. And they're just getting started. They have events this year. I mean, this is another name like Palantir. It's like the one mistake I'm not making with this name that I made on Palantir is I am buying into strength. I am not scared about valuation here. One, because Robinhood really has the growth, and like you can make a case that it's cheap right here. But B, because even if it's not necessarily cheap, if it's not going back to 20 when I started buying, or at $8 when I really started buying, then yeah, you're going to have to pay a multiple. And barring any economic calamity over the next 4 years, now that we got Trump in office, it's going to be hard to get 30, 40% dips. You'll get 10% dips, maybe even 20% dips, but it's hard to see, actual 50% drawdowns. It could happen, but it's just tough to see it. So if that's the case, then, share basis or share ownership over cost basis, I think is the most important thing. Let's talk about Google. We have Google earnings today as well. So I'm going to be covering Google. Wow, 208. Look at that on Google. Google's here at $208. I'm going to be covering Google, AMD, Snap, and Chipotle later today. So that's going to be very important to cover later today after the bell. Now, in terms of Google, what did I do with Google? So I had 50 shares of Google. I sold it at 196 in the overnight markets. Why did I sell it? A, it was a hedge because I was afraid of the tariff war. Obviously, nothing happened with the tariff war, so it is what it is. B, I already have long exposure to Google. So those 50 shares were not going to move the needle on Google. It's not a real position to me. What's becoming a real position is NVIDIA. And so quite frankly, when you just think about like organizing the portfolio, do I want 10 grand in Google when I already have, basically 40 grand committed to it in terms of exercising long calls in the future at 150? Or do I want to double down on NVIDIA because NVIDIA is giving me a really big dip that Google's not giving me? So I'd rather put that 10,000 in NVIDIA and finish out my 500 shares, to be honest. But I am still exposed to Google. And if it goes up, I would be very, very happy today. So it's up 2.74%. Here's my expectations for Google. I kind of, here's what I think. I think that they're going to crush it on 3 metrics. Number 1 is cloud. Azure crushed it, even if they guided lower. So I think Google, which is growing faster than Azure when it comes to cloud, obviously off a smaller base, they're going to guide to probably 35%. And if they can guide to 30% going into 2025's revenue growth for cloud, I think that's going to be very important. Number 2, I think YouTube is not stopping. Now, YouTube might be a little bit less profitable compared to previous quarters because their comps are really tough compared to 2023. But nonetheless, YouTube's a behemoth and it's not going anywhere. And they've done a lot of deals with Shopify and different collaborations to make YouTube do what it's doing. So I think YouTube's going to go well. And then the other big part of the business that I think still matters is AI. Google has 100 million YouTube Premium members. Or no, it's 80 million YouTube Premium. And I think it's 100 million Google Plus members. So they've got a lot of people paying subscription revenue, and a lot of that subscription revenue deters from any of the problems they have to deal with search revenue being commoditized or cannibalized by AI. Now, the existential question on Google is is ChatGPT going to take their lunch? Are LLM search generated answers going to stop their beautiful pay-per-click advertising revenue? And the answer is no. Like, and anyone who thought that was going to happen, and even I thought that was going to happen back when it was at 130, we were wrong. It just like, no, that's not happening. If anything, Google's going to be able to monetize those AI-based searches, and that's it. End of story. This is not an argument where ChatGPT takes their lunch. And if they can just put up the growth, I think last quarter was 13%. If they can get to like 15 to 16% on their top line search business, which is probably going to be doing close to 70 billion in revenue. Seeking Alpha right here. What is their projection on earnings for Google? Their projection on earnings is 96 billion. So you would argue probably 80 billion of that is going to come just from search. That's going to be a big quarter from Google. Evan right here says, how was YouTube CPMs in October and December? That's a really good point. And that's very important because Google had a very large advertising business for elections in October and November. So Meta beat EPS by $2. They did $8 a share. Analysts thought they would do $6.50. So I would imagine Google follows the same. By the way, Robinhood right here, 53.11. Palantir still holding 104.93. And if they beat on EPS and revenue simply based off the election tailwind, yeah, that's an argument for why Google should see some moves today. I mean, I don't think Google has to tank 10%. I don't think Google has to go up 10%, but I do think Google can get a positive move to the upside versus the downside. The one tricky thing about this is Microsoft had a decent earnings, but they got hit. Tesla, good earnings. They got up for a day, then they got hit. Meta has been the only one that's kind of sustained its momentum post earnings right here at 705. I think Google either goes the Microsoft route where the guidance for cloud sucks and that's why they tank 10%, or they go the Meta route where the guidance might not be the best, but the search business is so damn strong, like Meta's advertising business on Facebook and Instagram, that the street can't deny that this is not going to be a story that goes away anytime soon, especially if we avoid a recession, because then advertisers will continue to have to advertise on Meta and Google. So if I had to pick a pump or dump, I would pick a pump. And I think Google is going to probably surprise when it comes to their search advertising revenue. 207.9 on Google. That's my preview there. I think they'll do well. Hopefully Sundar can be pretty firm on the call and get people to be excited, even though they don't love him as CEO. And the final thing I want to hear from them is what's their plan for AI? I mean, what's their plan for Gemini? What's their plan for DeepSeek? I'm pretty sure there's a lot of things they're thinking about. We know that Google's in Waymo. We know they just had a partnership with Aptronic, which is a humanoid robotics company. So they've probably got a lot of things they're working on in regards to growing the top line of the business from different revenue streams. I think investors would want more clarity about that here today as well. And so we'll see later today if that ends up playing out. AMD. Okay, so I'm not the best person to ask about AMD because I just don't know anything about this business, dude. I really don't. Like, my gut feeling is that AMD pumps because sentiment is so bad that any good news on AMD takes AMD higher. But I don't know anything about AMD. I know Lisa Su is amazing. I know that. Well, this is the first thing I get when I type in AMD on Twitter. I know that the street thinks there's some undervaluation there. AMD $185 billion market cap, $7.5 billion in revenue estimates. Palantir $220 billion market cap, $828 million in revenue. It pays to be a uniform. It pays to be uniform. What is it? Uniform. It pays to be a unicorn. It pays to not be uniform and follow things the cookie cutter way. It pays to be a unicorn. But look, nonetheless, I don't know. I don't know about AMD. I mean, I'll ask you guys. What do you guys think? Let's put in the chat. What do you guys think about AMD? By the way, 74% of you said you are more excited than nervous about Palantir. So 74% of you said you are more excited at this price than nervous on Palantir. Okay, AMD pump or dump. If AMD dumps, there's something wrong with the narrative because it's already dumped so aggressively from 220 and the sentiment's so bad. So you got to get something really ugly on that guidance for that. And if they have something ugly, I'm concerned about NVIDIA. But theoretically, I might not have to be concerned about NVIDIA because AMD has always been ugly compared to NVIDIA. But if it's like a sector thing they talk about, which I wouldn't imagine because AI demand is up there, then that's something we have to look at, especially when it comes to data center revenues. But if it's not a sector thing and it's an AMD thing, then AMD has some issues. And I guess on earnings tonight, we're going to see PayPal is down 9.2%. Did anyone find out what's going on with PayPal? Let me do a quick search. They beat on the top and the bottom. They're buying back $15 billion of their shares. Something's going on that's getting the street upset. Roy said guidance is soft. It looks worse than soft for down. Dude, their market cap is 80 billion. And in the trailing 12 months, or in the trailing 24 months, they are pledging to buy back 20 billion of that stock. I talk about the yield on your buybacks and what you're giving back to shareholders compared to your market cap. I mean, like, that stat alone, if the company's not a dead company, would get me interested to invest. So how bad was the guidance that's getting the street upset right here? Fiscal year 2025, they're estimating non-GAAP EPS of 6 to 10%. They're guiding for transaction margins of 4 to 5%. I guess that is relatively low. And they're guiding for revenue, it seems like in the range of 5 to 7% as well. Yeah, and their margins are, it looks like their margins are down quarter over quarter. I think that might be a reason as well. It's tough, dude. It's tough. I got to look more into the, into like, I've been thinking about PayPal for a while just because I think it's a little bit of a safe bet. I mean, dude, when a company is worth 80 billion and they're buying back 20 billion of their stock, and they're not a dead company, PayPal is not a dinosaur. But granted, maybe the earnings guidance is soft because they are facing competition and they're not becoming a dinosaur, but they're starting to become a bit more of an older company that just can't put up the earnings growth. So maybe there's something to dive into. Maybe there's a reason why it's cheap, is what I'm trying to say. But on face value, if the thesis is intact and this is like kind of a stupid dip, you don't find a lot of companies that buy back 25% of their market cap. So it's something we got to look at. Something we got to look at here. Now, granted, this is the fun part about being a growth investor. When you got something like Hood that's going to put up 100% growth, that's in the same space kind of with fintech. By the way, Hood just unveiled buy now, pay later. Some people probably have it on their credit card app. They're coming after the BNPL market. I mean, just constant innovation, which leads to constant growth, which leads to momentum. And it might be a reason why Hood at 53 is better than PayPal at 83. I mean, by the end of the year, I would say Hood is going to be performing better even from 53 than PayPal does at 81. Because Hood has a narrative. Hood has growth. And a narrative and growth is what really can move a stock. S&P 500 at 601, so we're above 6,000. NVIDIA holding just below 120 at 119. Where is Palantir? Palantir is still $104 on the day. $104 on the day. Any thoughts on SMCI? I am long SMCI via leaps, $50, January 2027. I'm probably down like $1,000 on those leaps because I bought them, I think, when SMCI was 34. I just hope they're not a fraud. I just hope they're not a fraud. And if they're not a fraud, and we'll find out soon on February 11th, then I think this thing gaps up. Like, I think it would gap up to $40, dude, if they're not a fraud and they file all their forms on side. Because the valuation is kind of stupid given the growth they're going to put up. And if you believe in NVIDIA's growth, SMCI is going to be a key player there. But like, I don't know. We're going to have to see. We're going to have to see if they can do that. You should ask the year-to-date question now. I'm sure there's a lot of green. Spinning Nickels, thank you for the $5 super chat. Yes, let's do that in the chat. What is your year-to-date returns? What is your year-to-date returns today? I am at 18.69%. 18.69. We can put in the chat right here. I'm sure Palantir is bringing up everyone's year-to-date returns nicely this morning here today. Yeah. I see a lot of 20%, a lot of 25, a lot of 30s. There you go. There you go. I see a lot of them. Last week, it was 7 to 15 was the average. This time, it is 20 to 35. 20 to 35. I'm beneficial 37%, Jenks 23%, Knights 32%. Okay, who's taking some profits? Let me say that as well. Who's selling a little bit? Who's taking some profits, whether it's Palantir or anything, getting into the second month of the year? Is anyone kind of de-risking a little bit, taking some profits, maybe selling some aggressive? Here's the, if you don't want to freaking sell your Palantir, I mean, let's just look at the covered call premiums on Palantir today. Let's see, because these things must be printing. Let's go out 1 month, March 14th. Let's go to something egregious. What's an egregious price for Palantir to be at in 1 month? 130? Is that egregious? Someone's willing to pay $196 for that contract. which means even if you bought shares today, let's say you bought 100 shares at $105, which would cost you $10,500, you could get a return that is 2 freaking percent, 1.8% if you bought shares today by selling that covered call for 130 March 14th. Now, is 130 ridiculous? That would be adding another $65 billion in market cap in a month. One could argue that's a little aggressive. Then again, one could argue last night was aggressive as well in terms of the move. But the point is, if you don't want to sell your Palantir, I mean, you could go all the way to 150. Someone is paying for $150, 62 cents, which is $62 a contract, which means let's just say if you have 10,000 shares, you can sell 100 contracts. Your 10,000 shares times 62 cents a share is $6,200 you can make in covered call premium. And the only way your shares get called away is if Palantir gets to $150 by March 14th. This is why I like covered calls. Now, granted, people have been royally screwed on covered calls on Palantir if you've been aggressive, meaning if your covered call was at 85 and the stock was at 80, yeah, you're kind of screwed this morning and you have to do a lot of rolling to navigate that. But if you have no covered calls and you don't think it's going to add $120 billion in market cap in the next month, someone is out there willing to pay you still. What is the return on that? 0.63%, more than 0.5% to gamble on the stock going to 150. This is the beauty of covered calls. Granted, if we get to 150, don't blame me, okay? Because I don't know if we can get to 150 by March 14th. But the point is, the reason I'm highlighting this example, and on Palantir it's unique because Palantir, obviously, it's up 25% today, so the call volume is massive, 125 million on the shares. The point is there's a lot of volatility, and the volatility is where you benefit from when it comes to selling that volatility, aka selling covered calls on the position. It's just, if you sell a covered call at 110, I wouldn't do that because you could get some great premium. But I'd be pretty scared at 110 because even if you think that's ridiculous because we've already had a 25% move, people probably thought it was ridiculous for seeing 105 after being at 83 last night, right? So it's just one of those things where you have to tolerate your risk tolerance here when it comes to Palantir. Doug says, don't do it. Ask me how to lose 2,500% on Palantir. Yeah, I mean, look, if you sell the $40 covered call 2 years out, it's tough. Now, when you think the stock is 20 and it's not going to get there, it sounds like a smart decision, but it's tough. It's kind of tough to see it play out. I'm just using it as an example. Obviously, you have to make the decision on if you want to sell it or not. But the point is there is a way to make money off your shares without having to get rid of the shares. And then you have to ask yourself a question. Let's say you have 10,000 shares. Let's say you're just getting into covered calls. You want to leave 8,000. You want to put 2,000 up for sale. If 2,000 shares got sold at 150, somehow, if Palantir gets to 150 in the next month, which again, for context, that is another 120 billion in market cap that would be added. That would put us at a $350 billion market cap. We would definitively be bigger than Salesforce at that point. Would you be sad if 2,000 shares got called away at 150 if your average is like 25? It's like it's another, you can position size the amount you put up for sale where you're okay with actually some of those shares getting called away because it's time to take profits on certain parts of the position. So I think there's a lot of ways you can navigate covered calls without having to put all of them up for sale at a price that is very likely to get broken through. And the reason I say it's very likely is because if you put it up at 110 and it's at 104, logically it's closer to 110 than it is to 150. And so the premium's better, but also the probabilities are better of you getting called away. So you kind of just minimize your risk by getting less premiums and giving yourself a better probability. So those are my thoughts there on Palantir covered calls. My broker offered me to lend my shares. Is that normal? Yes, that is normal. So your broker is offering you to give you a percentage return on the fees that shorts have to pay to borrow your shares. You can choose to do that or not. I don't think it makes a difference. If you lend your shares out, you get paid a little bit of money, and the shorts get to borrow against it. There are some scenarios, so please look this up. Don't quote me on this. There are some scenarios where you lend out your shares and something could happen where those shares don't come back. It is a very low probability, like very low. Again, look this up. Ask ChatGPT, what are the risks of lending my shares to a broker if they want to lend it out to the shorts? Again, like this is very low risk, but confirm it with yourself. For the far majority of people, you can lend out your shares and the shorts can short it and you can make money. Robinhood does about $35 million of revenue every quarter from people that choose to lend out their shares, and based on lending out their shares to shorts, they get paid a fee. And I think what happens here is if you're like selling covered calls and options on your shares while you're lending them out to shorts, that's where there can be an issue. Again, I don't know exactly. I've never really lent out my shares, so I need to get more educated about this. But I don't think there's a world where you literally lose your shares, but there are some little wonky things that can happen. Granted, Palantir is such a liquid market where the wonkiness is probably a bit more mitigated. But you can look it up, and there is a way to make sense. So if you got 20,000 shares, I mean, if you make an extra couple $100 a month just from lending them out to shorts, and the risks are relatively limited, that's not the worst idea in the world. If the shorter goes bankrupt, your shares are on risk. That's what I was looking for. Okay, that's what I was looking for. So that's the argument right there, and I think that's correct. If the short goes bankrupt, so let's say Palantir does get to 150, and someone shorted your shares at 100, and they can't cover the short. Yeah, I think that's when the shares can get at risk. Granted, a lot of brokerages would stop that from happening. So for example, if someone's shorting it on Schwab and Schwab realizes that Palantir is running, Schwab's going to give that person a quick little margin call to make sure that there's no way that that person goes bankrupt and can't pay back the short. So theoretically, you're protected in a way, but it's something to look into if you're going to turn on stock lending. But yeah, that is one option you can do. Here's another story for you guys that I think you'll appreciate. I got on the phone with a bunch of retail investors last night. I talked to a variety of people. One of the person that I got to communicate with is up $100 million yesterday. He was crying because he was up 100 million. And he has about 5 million shares. He was up $20 a share. So 5 million times 20 is 100 million. I think he's got to be up close to 700-800 million on the position. I think he got in when it was like $20. So this is what I mean. This is what I've been trying to tell Steve. It's like, he's saying a lot of retail is jumping into it. I'm like, yes, but a lot of wealthy people jumped into it early, very early, and they're not selling. And whatever they were going to sell, they already sold. I mean, now this position is left to ride, and they're seeing the story play out. And quite frankly, if they sell, the tax bill is enormous, and a lot of wealthy people don't want to pay taxes. So it's one of those things where it's like, and this is fully real. This is legit. This is happening. There's multiple people I know that are in this position. That guy uniquely is in the best position with 5 million shares. But there was a lot. I mean, there was this dude. There was this dude on Instagram Reels the other day, like legit showing his IBKR statement. This dude was up 7 million on Palantir after hours. I mean, like there's people that took a real shot on this stock when it was in the single digits, and they've held. They really have held. So there's a lot of people making a lot of money on this name. And, your average retail Joe is not the only person that holds it. So I think that's another reason why the stock continues to be elevated. Because when you've got people like that are in the name that heavy, it's hard for them to necessarily get rid of it. Amit, if you're up 100 million, why wouldn't you cash in? Well, you got to look at that relative to their net worth. I mean, if their net worth is billions, dude, as crazy as it sounds, man, like when your net worth is billions, like your portfolio moves 20 to 30 million a day. Like, and I've seen some of these screenshots and it's fucking insanity. Like it's legit insanity. Like you see a screenshot where someone's up 35 million in a day and you're just like, real wealth is out there. Like it's like you talk about, my sister was up 20,000 yesterday and she was about to cry. Like there's people that are up 30 and you get desensitized to it, you get desensitized. So I think the reason you don't sell is because you got to get 50% to Uncle Sam. And B, it's like, it's not really moving the needle long-term if you could hold on to it and the stock could get to 500, right? So I think from that perspective, that's why some of these people continue to hold on. Robinhood right here, 5309, grab at 508, Palantir at 10. Wow, Palantir trying to make its way back to 106. Potentially getting back up there. Let's see. Lunar says, that's how you bought enough to begin with, diamond hands. This is such an underrated comment. Such an underrated comment. A lot of the wealthiest people I know, the smartest thing they did was not options or freaking selling puts or whatever. They just bought a stock and they held it, and they bought so much of it and they just held it. That's it. And it's easy to do this when you've got 20 million to make the investment, because then 20 million could turn into 100 million really quick if that can 5x, and you don't have to do options or leverage or any of this stuff. But one of the easiest ways is just to buy and hold and believe in the long-term thesis. Like, is Palantir a bigger company than it is right now in 2030 or 2035? I think the answer is yes. Will the stock price reflect that? I think the answer is yes. Now, we've seen with Tesla that you could go 3 to 4 years of just pure flat, if not worse, because of too much growth being priced in. And I'm not saying that risk doesn't exist for Palantir. I'm just saying as of now, the market is believing Palantir can grow into it. And that's why they're giving it this momentum. Amit, how would you enter Palantir for those who missed the boat? I wouldn't. I mean, let me be dead honest. I wouldn't. I would not be buying at 105.73 and establishing a position. I just wouldn't do it. I think it's irresponsible of me to say you should do it. If you missed the boat, you missed the boat. It's okay. I missed the boat on HIMS. I mean, look, maybe HIMS goes to 80, but this thing was at $2. Now it's at 41. I'm not like, I missed the 20X. If it goes up a double, that's great, but a double is not that exciting, right? Like a double is awesome, but there's other opportunities where you could find a double on. So, if Palantir even goes up 3-4x from here, it's a great investment. But it's, as Steve was saying, I agree with it. It's not the investment it was at 20 or even 30 or even 40. So if you're new to this, I would wait for a pullback if you get it. And if you really want shares, I would sell puts at like, I don't even know what the put premiums would be worth selling it at. Maybe 75 if there's any premium there, maybe 80. But I would not flat out be like, all right, I finally believe in the Palantir thesis. I'm buying at 105 because it's very late to be onto the thesis. It's just tough, dude. I mean, like more likely than not, it's not able to hold this. But then again, that was what a lot of people said at 85, right? So like, no one knows. It's just the one thing I do know is you're absolutely chasing if you're getting into the name. Because one thing, that's objectively true is it's not cheap. We know that objectively. So if you're chasing and you know you're chasing and you're ready to DCA, then that's fine. But if you think it's ready to go to 130 because it gapped up from 80 to 105, I think it could happen. It's just, I wouldn't take that risk personally. It would be tough to take that risk. I mean, NVIDIA, right? NVIDIA's PEG ratio is below 1. Palantir's PEG ratio at this point is above 10. It's just like there's different opportunities that are out there in the market. If you establish a position, now if you have an average of $20 and you want to get more Palantir, I think by all means buy some at 105 because you get more shares and you're in the story and you've been in the story for a long time. But I would much rather buy something with a PEG ratio below 1 than a PEG ratio above 10 if I'm initiating a position, which is what I'm doing on NVIDIA. And there's other opportunities. There's other opportunities there. So I think that's kind of just how you have to play with it there. Aren't we supposed to buy when others are fearful? Yeah, but no one's fearful of Palantir, dude. I mean, 26% on the day. There is no fear. Someone show me the fear. I don't see it. I mean, the fact that Jim Cramer is on Twitter right now trying to take credit for Palantir, the fact that Cramer, who has said so many vile and nasty things about this stock and Palantir, is trying to be like, I told you guys it was going to 100 right here. I mean, like it's just one of those things where like the fear is not there. The fear is not there. There is full on excitement and euphoria. And that tends to be when you don't necessarily establish a position. Now, if you're buying into strength, that's different. This is the mistake I made back at when Palantir was 30 and $40. I should have bought into strength. I had a good average. I could have got more shares. I didn't have to initiate a position at those levels. I should have been smart enough to realize this is starting to get into an S curve. Even I didn't expect it. But at 105, if you're initiating a position, there's just other opportunities. It's not really buying into strength to me at that point. It's just buying to buy, which is chasing, And so that's why it's tougher to get into the name right here. Lunar says, adjust your DCA when it's up or down, but DCA win over the long term. I agree with that. So if you're ready to buy it at 105, knowing it could go back to 80, as long as you're mentally prepared for that, I think that's important. And maybe it doesn't go to 80. Maybe it keeps going up and it goes to 130, right? But you just have to have that mentality when thinking of Palantir. All right, Bitcoin's at 99.5. Grab is still holding $5. Hood 53.15. Amazon 242. Nvidia 119.9. Still just below 120. SoFi 1550. S&P at 601. Tesla at 384. Markets are still green. At 2:30, David Sachs is going to be talking about what is he talking about? He's talking about crypto. So at 2:30, we'll be listening to what Sachs has to say. Let's see what else is going on the street in regard to this tariff stuff and see if we can get any headlines on that. And then we'll see what Sachs has to say about crypto. I don't think they're going to announce a Bitcoin strategic reserve, but I do think there's a world where they can set up the foundation to talk about a Bitcoin strategic reserve with this crypto legislation today. And that could be something that's important for us to take a look at. Oh, let's finish with Cathie. We were listening to Cathie. Let's finish with Cathie, and then we'll keep going from there. All right, here we go.
Lots and lots of excitement around AI.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned, of course, that you thought that the autonomous implementation for Tesla might have happened by now. I mean, obviously, there have been these optimistic projections. I was looking back in 5 years ago on your website. You thought that 2024 Tesla's car sales would be 3.2 million as your bear case, and they were 1.8 million. So obviously, it's hard to project 5 years forward. Why is the world ready to pay up for many robots? Actually.
So that time period is very important, Mike. Did we know about COVID? Our forecasts hinge importantly on unit growth, and everything stopped during COVID.
Yeah.
I think in terms of our forecast on EVs, we were much closer to the mark than most other analysts out there, certainly in terms of surprises relative to expectations, which drove the stock importantly. One other thing, just in terms of big ideas, I think the most underappreciated application of AI is healthcare. I think healthcare is responsible for an incredible amount of storage out there right now. Data is the name of the game. And healthcare, we've got 37 trillion cells in our body, and they're going to be sequenced as we're looking for cures. And so while robo-taxis might be the biggest application short-term, $10 trillion in the whole ecosystem over the next 5 to 10 years, we think the most profound application is in healthcare, and that it will lead to curing disease. It already is.
The market seems to, whenever it does kind of get enraptured with these big themes, want to have kind of a bellwether clear play, whether that was certainly Tesla in EVs, NVIDIA in the AI infrastructure build-out. Is there something comparable in the medical applications of AI?
Well, I think you have to look at the sequencing technologies. That's where it's starting. So the Illuminas, the PacBios. But in terms of research in AI, there are a couple of names. Recursion Pharmaceuticals has just in 1 year, thanks to AI, and I think 1,500 GPUs, so very few relative to what we're seeing elsewhere, has driven the average number of hypotheses per researcher for new drugs up tenfold in just 1 year, from 20 to 200 per researchers. So we think that research and discovery is going to be impacted incredibly. And we also think that phase 1 and phase 2 drugs, which get very little love in the marketplace these days, especially phase 1 and anything preclinical, that now that AI is speeding everything up, we're going to see more value placed on those because the number of failures is going to drop and the time to market is going to accelerate. And we think cures are going to increase the value of patents. And this is not.
Do you guys believe in that thesis? I mean, look, Cathie's crushed it on Tempest AI. She has absolutely crushed it on her healthcare AI play. Now she got a little bit of an assist from Nancy to crush it. But do you guys think we should be really looking at genomics more seriously? Do you think it's something that matters? I've always not felt excited about the space, but I mean, there is a hell of a thesis here that AI would be a big benefactor to drug discovery and the things she's talking about. Kris said, call me. All right, let's get Kris on the show. But I've just never taken it seriously. I've never taken it seriously, ever. Maybe that's the next sector outside of big tech that could catch a bid from AI. Okay, a lot of you guys are saying we should look into it. All right, I guess we'll start the process of looking into genomics a little deeper to see if there's anything there. Kris, what's up? Good morning.
Hello?
Yeah, you're on the show. You're good.
Oh, hold on a second. My Bluetooth's connected. Hello? Can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me? No, you can't hear me. Okay, let me call him again. Okay, let me call him again. We'll get him onto the show. I think his phone just died. Why is this phone being stupid? Hold on 1 second, guys. Let's get him in. Okay, this should work.
All right, now I can hear it.
What's up, man? How are you? Good morning.
Dude, I cannot believe where Palantir ended up, dude. It's wild. Wild.
It's kind of crazy, right? I mean, it's just all of us just it's wild.
I mean, this is like one of those lessons that you learn in investing where don't fixate yourself too much on valuation. But then again, I'm old enough to the point where valuations actually mean something to me. And the thing is, like, I would end up losing sleep overnight. And I told myself a long time ago, like, if I buy a stock and I'm losing sleep over it, I just don't want to hold it, you know? So for me, the valuation got too rich. It's just, I'm happy that all of you guys are making money. The one thing I'm really glad of it, I closed out any of my short positions. I don't have a single short position or nothing on Palantir.
Hey, you closed that at like $30. You got out really early from this.
Yeah. Well, I saw the writing on the wall at that point, which was there was an unusual amount of risk with the amount of retail interest in it. So, you know, it really comes down to like making sure that you're not like that guy from the GameStop thing, where you have a theory and you're too full of yourself to say, you know what, screw this. So like Melvin Capital, he knew that a short attack was coming, you know, and he saw it being published out there. And what did he do? He ended up doubling down like an idiot. And that's not what you do, man. If the position is going against you and it's going against you hard, get out. You know, don't try to deal with the unlimited loss scenario. So
Let me ask you this question. Obviously, even though you're not a shareholder anymore, you've been following the journey for the past 4 or 5 years. You've known about Palantir for a long time. You saw the numbers yesterday. The numbers were amazing, but I'm sure you're probably thinking, okay, how much richer can the valuation get? What is your thesis on why this stock continues to go higher on growth that is good, but it's not NVIDIA level growth yet?
Well, I mean, you know, this is where you have to talk to guys like Dumb Money. You know, what's his name? Kris
Camillo. Yeah.
He explains it. Sometimes what happens is there's so much enthusiasm behind a name that the valuations don't matter and the momentum just carries it forward. And then as it keeps rocketing higher and analysts keep raising their price targets, more and more and more people keep joining in on it. You know, and so it creates like this snowball effect. And so what happens is when you have a positive earnings, it's another catalyst for, oh, look, this is headed in the right direction. So if Palantir right now is still headed in the right direction, then the valuation doesn't necessarily make a lot of sense. You know, I mean, it doesn't have to make a lot of sense as long as there's people that believe in it. And here's the thing, like the mission that Palantir is on is one of the most commendable missions that you could be part of. The one thing I love about the company, and I really do love about the company, is that they do put like America first.
Yeah.
You know, they've always been very, very determined on that. And I love that. Me being a former veteran, they have a lot of respect for veterans. They've actually provided the tools necessary to take care of veterans on the field and off the field. So you got to respect like companies that are willing to kind of, you know, put that part of ethos.
Well, let me also ask you this. So Bank of America said they're raising the price target to 125, and their price target of 125 is based on 15 times EV to EBITDA on 2035's earnings. They're going out 10 years into the future to justify the price today. Is that normal? And why do you think they're doing something like that? I mean, I know you said valuation because it doesn't matter with momentum, but how do you think the street is justifying this?
I mean, I've seen this happen so many times, man, where you remember in 2021, everyone just kept raising price targets. And then they would work backwards, right? And they would try to justify the price target that way, where they would go like, oh yeah, you know what? Like you remember like how many companies, man? I'm trying to think of all the companies in 2021. Like I think Twilio was one of them. Like what are some of the high flyers?
I mean, all the Cathie stocks, right? Like all of them.
Yeah. You know, so what ends up happening is the stock keeps rocketing higher, people get in, and then people start to work backwards in their assumptions. And I mean, dude, if you think Palantir is going to be at, like, literally, that's crazy level of growth, but it's possible, you know? So, I don't know. I'm personally like, look, there's probably better value plays out there with a lot less execution risk going forward. So I'd rather be in other things.
Give me some thoughts on Google after the bell. You are heavily concentrated into this one. Do you think we get a pump or a dump?
Dude, I think we get a pump. Like, there's a couple of main factors that I think are really going to help Google. Number one, December, like the fourth quarter tends to be one of their strongest months. So if you look at historically, like, and you go back, this month is usually one of the highest ones, you know, whether it comes to Christmas and advertising, all that stuff. And then on top of it, you've got the election boost going on. So that's why Meta had a really good time. And then at the same time, they released a lot of products for Google AI. One thing that I think a lot of people may not necessarily know, but Google, because of they use a lot of their own hardware, they have much better operating margins when it comes to cloud. So one of the things that they can do is actually undercut some of the other cloud players. And the one that I saw that took a little bit of a hit was Azure, right? Like Azure grew, but it wasn't like great growth.
Dude, they had the stock had its worst day since 2022.
Yeah, and I think Google is actually picking up that growth. So I think Google right now is going to do really well. I mean, do you know what Kubernetes is?
Yes, I've heard of that before.
Yeah. So one of the main things about Google is that Google invented Kubernetes, and like from what I'm seeing, container services are becoming really, really big. And then Google at the same time is just a freaking beast of a company, man. When it comes to YouTube, it comes to advertising, subscriptions. I mean, I don't know anyone right now that doesn't have like YouTube, either YouTube TV or YouTube Premium or Google Music or whatever. And so all of that revenue is just going to keep coming in. And search is, no matter how many people are saying like Google search is dying, that's not what the numbers are saying. People are still searching on Google for a lot of things. But I think someone, it was actually pretty funny. Someone put on Twitter, like they were searching for porn on ChatGPT and it said no violation of content. But like, there's never going to be anything that replaces Google because any of these LLMs can't generate porn links. I mean, just imagine how much porn links Google probably makes money off of, you know?
I mean, that's a lot of traffic. I mean, the hub is in the top 7 websites on the planet, right?
Yeah.
Ranked, so.
Yeah, but the thing is, people go to Google first. You ever go to a porno and you just type it in on Pornhub? They have terrible search.
Well, if AI starts replicating those videos.
Oh man, everyone goes to Google first. You know, just like let me get like a Latina gang.
I am protecting you from the couch tonight. Okay, I'm protecting you from the couch tonight. Okay, cool. So we got a bull case right there on Google. How do you think the stock falls off?
Search Latina gangbangs on ChatGPT. Good luck. Then Google's got a problem, but I think until then we're pretty safe. Sorry, go ahead.
I tried. Just know to his wife listening, I tried.
Man, she ain't gonna watch no 4-hour stream. That's fine, you know.
Okay. What was I gonna say? What could get Google to tank? Like, give me the bear case on this thing down 10% after hours today.
The same thing that I said, but in the opposite. Any slowdown in Google Cloud growth, that could definitely tank them because that's one of their new drivers for growth, right? So you kind of want to have a growing portfolio of businesses. That could be one thing. But like I said, it's hard for me to see that being a problem. But that could be one of them.
So you really don't think this is going to pull a Meta where the numbers are just so good the market can't deny it?
Yeah, I mean, I just don't see a lot of downside to Google. I mean, the only maybe search numbers, if search numbers come in like flat or weak year over year, that could probably do it too. But I don't think it's a scenario that we have to really worry about right now. Not to mention, like, they're even becoming more and more efficient too. Like, they're laying off a bunch of middle managers. I don't know if you saw that. You know,
I did hear that report yesterday. Yeah, Meta's doing the
Yeah.
same. Yeah.
So it's kind of being, I don't know. These companies are just doing well. They're also buying back a ton of shares. So yeah, Google, in my opinion, is probably going to do really well. But then again, 4 o'clock's going to come and we'll see what happens.
Okay, so let me ask you about the pseudo trade war we've had for the past 48 hours, which ended up being a nothing burger. Do you think Trump legit just scared everyone to negotiate? And do you think over the next 4 years we're gonna have to deal with more of this?
Oh yeah, dude, volatility is Trump's bread and butter, man. He says it himself. Like, he likes to keep his opponents guessing, so that this way they're always off tilt. They don't know what's going to happen. Like, do you know today Denmark said, well, maybe it's okay if the U.S. builds more military bases on Greenland. Like, who would have thought that could have even happened? But I mean, dude, did you, like, was that even a remote idea in your brain when you were voting for Trump? Like, oh yeah, we're gonna take over Greenland.
No,
and we're gonna go after the Panama Canal. We're gonna fucking we're gonna put tariffs on Canada, like our longest standing ally. Like, seriously, I never even considered that, but this is how he is. I mean, so he's probably like calling the Chinese and he's like, listen, if I can treat my friends in a shitty way like this, you're fucking nothing. So don't fuck around,
I mean, that is true, dude. If you can treat your friends like this, and he was willing to go with the tariffs, it seems like. I mean, he probably knew Trudeau would capitulate and Mexico would capitulate, but it seems like he was ready to go. And that probably did scare them to an extent, and they gave up.
I mean, the Chinese are the one. I think the real conversation that needs to be had is who is ultimately the real target, and I think it's actually the Chinese. The Chinese are the ones that the U.S. is going to counter. Everything that I've seen so far from the Trump administration is built on countering China. You first look at the Panama Canal, right? Obviously, that was China encroaching in the Americas. So number one, that was that. Greenland. The whole thing with Greenland is that you want connection through the Arctic, and the thing is that waterway is actually really important. So you want to have logistically like a firewalled like defensive posture. So Greenland is very important geostrategically. Then you've got Canada. Canada was starting to get really close to the Chinese a little bit. I don't know if you've seen something called the Cullen Commission. Look that up. Like the Chinese were actually like getting a little bit involved in like internal affairs in Canada, and Chinese have been buying up a lot of Canada. So that's a big problem. And then the same thing with Mexico, where all this fentanyl and everything else, it was all coming from China, getting smuggled to the cartels. And then the Mexicans the cartels would end up smuggling it into the U.S. So, the Chinese are ultimately our adversaries in all of this, long-term, short-term, whatever you want to call it, the IP theft that goes on in there. So the Trump administration's main role right now is how do we geopolitically align ourselves to counter China, So I don't necessarily agree with all the methods that he's using, because he's very like publicly shames his allies, and that's probably not what you want long term, Like, but then again, our allies are also.
Yeah.
But then again, it's also like instability. Like the way that did you ever watch The Fresh Prince?
Yeah, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I love that show. Yeah.
You remember that one episode where I guess Will was trying to teach Ashley. It's like, listen, if you just act crazy, no one will mess with you, right?
Yes.
So,
he's like, mind your business. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of like that with Trump, where Trump is just like, I'll just act crazy, and no one will mess with me if I act crazy, because people will just be like, oh no, I can't mess around with this dude. He's fucking crazy, you know. I mean, this is the type of dude that'll call North Korea and says, I have a red button on my desk. Say some wrong shit and I'll press it. Like, who fucking does that?
What is your take on the sovereign wealth fund?
I think it's a good idea. I wish that it was done maybe 20 years ago when it could have made a really meaningful difference. So imagine right now, the U.S. government can borrow money cheaply. They can take excess cash coming in from other sources, like let's say like taxes on oil and natural gas sales, like the Middle East does, put that money into like the S&P 500, and now you've got yourself a little piggy bank that you can go into and use some of the money for like infrastructure projects. You know, like these are the kinds of things that had we done that like 20, 30 years ago, it would have been big.
Are you concerned about where we get the money from? Do we print the money? Like, how do we fund this thing? Have you thought about that, or just the idea is good enough to you to get started?
I mean, well, I think you have to start somewhere, right? One of the things that Scott Bessent and Howard Lutnick mentioned is that they've already got plans how they're going to do it. They could take some of the, let's say, the Bitcoin money from Silk Road, take that, put it in there, put it in the Bitcoin, take that Bitcoin that's been confiscated by the U.S. government, drop that shit in the sovereign wealth fund. Put some taxes on oil and natural gas sales around the country. Put those in there. Fuck it. I even said if they wanted to do like a partial tax deduction, not a full, but a partial tax deduction, I'll throw $100K in there. Do voluntary contributions. Do you know how many billionaires and millionaires we have that would be willing to actually put money towards something like that?
Yeah, dude, that's
benefit the country.
It's a hell of an idea because a lot of people that are billionaires have made their money because of the freedoms in the United States. And I imagine, like Warren Buffett, you're telling me he wouldn't throw a couple billion in there just to say thank you, before it's all said and done? I agree, it's a great idea.
Yeah, I mean, dude, do you know the story of the Statue of Liberty? The French sent us the Statue of Liberty,
Correct.
There wasn't any money to construct it. So, I think they just sent that out in the paper that there's no money people were sending like spare change, dollars, whatever, and they got the Statue of Liberty built.
Wow.
Right?
I didn't know that.
So the thing is, like, people around the country, dude, there are some generous people in the United States. And there's a lot of wealthy people that are willing to give money, especially if it means the long-term salvation of the country, right? But they want to make sure that the money is actually being used in the right way. So I think if there was a sovereign wealth fund that had some controls on it, where politicians couldn't just go into it and rate it every other year, every time like the what is that thing called? The political situation changes, I would be so down for putting some money towards it. And I think a lot of people would. And it doesn't have to be like hundreds of thousands of dollars. I mean, bro, small people can put small amounts in there.
Dude, even if everyone could put in like a couple thousand, and that's a partial tax benefit, so that's the incentive, but that adds up across the country, right?
Yeah. And the thing is, like, if you think about the compounding effect, if you put it into the market, bro, if you get 7, 8, 9% returns per year for like freaking 20, 30 years, you'll outpace the debt.
Also, I mean, like, they don't have to be risky. They don't have to invest in the next Tesla that inevitably is going to fail. They could just invest in the S&P.
That's right.
Like,
the S&P 500, that's it.
And if the sovereign wealth fund fails, it means America failed because the stock market failed, and then the whole world failed. So, like, really, what's the risk there?
Yeah. Not to mention, we could buy companies around the world too, international companies. You know, I mean, look at Harvard. That's a perfect example of a freaking. It's not a sovereign wealth fund, but it's a foundation. Look at how much money Harvard has now, and that's coming from donations, but then also the returns on those donations. CalPERS is the same exact thing over in California. Look at their returns. New York City, we have the New York City. I forgot the pension fund that we have. It's done well over the last, however many years. So I think right now we have to have creative out of the box ideas if we're ever going to solve like our national debt and all the other stuff. And I think one of the ways that we can do it is by equitizing realizing some of the assets that we have, putting something together, and then just every year that'll be like a nice little, like, make America great again dividend, I guess.
It's a great point with Harvard. There's so many alumni that have such an emotional, nostalgic, Bill Ackman, one of them, right? That cares so deeply about their alma mater. And imagine that for the country.
Yeah. Yeah. Dude, I'm telling you, there are a lot of people that would be willing to just give their money away and put it in that thing. I'm telling you, if they did it based on and the thing is, my only ask would be that it would be used to basically make the country better via something like infrastructure. So the goal should be infrastructure related only. not like pet projects like that other people want to just put up. Like keep the roads like the best roads in the country, like in the world. You want to keep that up. You want to invest in airport infrastructure to make the airports better, things like that, where it's actually going to develop us economically.
Matt said right here, the U.S. government makes 12.5 to 18.75% of every barrel made in the Gulf of America without having to pay lifting costs, pure profit. Put that in the fund.
There you go. Natural gas is huge now, right? So put some taxes on that thing. Fill up the fund with that. There's a whole bunch of buildings that the federal government's not using. Sell them. Put that fucker in the fund. Let's go. Build this fund up. I would love to see that thing turn into like $1 to $2 trillion by the end of Trump leaving.
I agree. I agree.
And I think it's definitely possible that these guys, if, like I said, there are a ton of people that are willing to put money in it. They just want to make sure that the money is going to get spent correctly.
Chris, did you see the news on Grab today? Why it's up 12%?
Yeah, I did. I don't know what the funny thing is, I don't think it can pass the regulatory muster to get the deal through. So I don't even know why they want to even attempt it.
So I just got the Morgan Stanley report. I'm going to go through it tonight, and I'll tell you guys about it on the market close. My guy just sent it to me. And Morgan Stanley thinks there's a decent shot it gets approved. They share your concerns that there's a chance it obviously doesn't. However, one of the guys I talked to this morning as well that's been deep into Grab, his argument is that Singapore and Indonesia run through political families that have connections. Yeah. And Anthony Tan, founder of Grab, he's one of the most connected guys inside of the country. So he's actually says there is a real chance where Grab and GoTo pay a little bit of a fee, maybe 20, 30 million bucks, and they get this thing approved. And because Grab did the same with Uber to an extent, right? So here's my question. If it does happen, do you think that's relatively bullish for them taking out one of their largest competitors?
Yeah, that means that now they don't have to spend nearly as much in incentives for to get customers. So their CAC would go down. Their customer acquisition costs would go down significantly, right? Yeah. They also could raise prices on certain things to make them more profitable. Yeah. The only thing I'd say is that there's probably some overlap that they'd have to deal with.
I agree. Yeah.
Cut out, but that's fine. My biggest bull case for Grab, believe it or not, is their financial division and their advertising revenue. That's probably going to be much higher margin than what they currently have. Whenever you see businesses like this, once they hit scale, it becomes easier and easier to grow. Because what happens is the first probably 10 years are the hardest. Now that they're like a household name in Southeast Asia, they can add value-added services. So if you look at their like finance division, their banking division, that's like growing like really.
38%, bro, year over year. It's insane.
So when I see that, I'm like, oh, interesting. Okay, so you've got yourself like. So I think what it is a lot of people still look at it purely as like a ride-hailing business and delivery business, which is still a core component. But there's other parts of the business that are growing within the company that are going to make it pretty valuable, in my opinion, in the long run. So I'm pretty long on Grab. The one that I'm probably ultra long on right now is Nubank. Like, oh, dude, you've got the amount of money these guys are going to be generating in the next few years, especially with expansion into Mexico, is freaking nuts.
You gotta go?
Yeah, I gotta go.
All right, thank you, brother. We'll talk to you later. Appreciate you.
Later.
That was the wife calling him about these comments that he had on the show today. I'm not going to repeat his comments. Dude, Chris is a wild boy. You guys think I'm wild with some of the stuff I say? Chris is wild, bro. That's why I love Chris. He'll say whatever the hell he wants, but he's a wild guy. All right, so I think that's it for the stream, guys. I did get the equity report from Morgan Stanley. I mean, let's read a little bit of it, and then we'll end the stream, and then I'm going to be back in literally 2 hours at 2:30 to stream David Sachs, so you guys will see me very soon. I don't know why the market's kind of taking a little bit of a hit right here. I mean, it's not really a hit. We're just seeing, instead of Palantir being at 106, it's at 102. Instead of Robinhood being at 53.15, it's at 52.75. So probably just generic algos, 12 p.m. I don't think there's any headlines here that's causing any movement. Here's what Morgan Stanley said. As per Bloomberg, Grab is weighing up a takeover of GoTo Group at a valuation of more than $7 billion. One of the scenarios being discussed is an all-stock purchase. The merger talks have been on and off multiple times over the last 5 years, and the companies have not commented on today's news reports. Despite being the largest on-demand service in Southeast Asia, Indonesia has the weakest unit economics as a highly competitive intensity has led to elevated incentives. Their EBITDA margin is 0.9% compared to Grab's at 4.4%. We think consolidation of market share would lift margins in Indonesia for both players with lower incentives as well as cost synergies. Regulatory approval. A merger would increase the combined entity's market share in Indonesia's on-demand ride-hailing service by 85% on our estimate. Based on merger regulations in Indonesia, we think regulatory approval might not be a bottleneck. They think it's possible. However, GoTo has also a presence in Singapore and ODS where approval may not be straightforward given the recent Grab Trans Cab deal fell through. Shareholder structure and management control. Given its larger scale, Grab could seek to have majority ownership and management control of the merged entity. However, this was potentially one reason why the deal didn't complete back in 2021. GoTo's shareholding structure includes multiple voting shares, and shareholder approval requirements would vary depending on the agenda. That means if this does happen, it's going to take a while. It's going to take a while for them to figure out exactly how they get the shareholder structure and voting rights agreed upon. Grab has $5.6 billion in cash. The news cited an all-stock purchase scenario. The Grab-Uber merger in 2018 was also all-stock, though given its strong cash position and a combination of cash and stock, that could also be possible. And then they go on to basically say why the multiples would probably make sense to have both of them merged together. Look, GoTo came out, I think, in a report today, and they denied the reports. The stock's not moving 12% up unless there is a 50% chance minimum of this thing happening. I would put the odds at 50-50 right now, minimum. You just don't move 54 million shares in volume when they barely do 20 million shares a day unless people think there's something to this rumor. Now, maybe it doesn't happen, and maybe everyone dumps it after they realize it's not happening. But if it really does have a shot, it would be massive for Grab to be able to capitalize on the space, and it would put them well in the lead to becoming a $100 billion company in Southeast Asia. So there you go. That's what we got on Grab. I couldn't read faster. I've been talking for 3 hours at this point. The speed has weighed out after talking for so long today. But here we go. Palantir 102.70. I think someone said in the comments, I now listen to a mid on 1.5 because I'm too conditioned at 1.0. So maybe I'll get everyone to speed me up even further into the future. 30 and a wake up says, my biggest bull case on Grab is the growing middle class in the regions. They dominate, very undervalued. I agree. The middle class wants more on-demand deliveries, financial services, ride hailing, and new products and services that Grab is going to offer. And as a result, that should be a country and region-wide tailwind for them going into the next decade. All right, that's it. It is 12 p.m. I am out. I'll be back at 2:30. 102.5 on Palantir. Congratulations to everybody. I think we had a lot of Palantir coverage today. We got a lot of different perspectives from people like Steve, Jeffries, Dan Ives. Ultimately, my bottom line is this. I wouldn't initiate a position here because the stock is expensive. But if I'm in the stock, I also don't really see a reason to sell based on the results I saw yesterday. And riding through the volatility over the next few years is probably a given when it comes to Palantir. But in the face of that volatility, if we have a unicorn, I think that unicorn can not only survive in the volatility, but thrive in the volatility. And as a result, it's just an incredible day. It's just an incredible day to see what we're seeing right now. So congrats. Congrats, everybody. Congrats, congrats, congrats. Are we doing Technical Tuesday today? That's a good question because we have a bunch of earnings and we also have Google's earnings call. I don't know. Maybe we do it on Wednesday, tomorrow, when we don't have to listen to Google. I'll talk with Jason. I'll see if he's still available. And if we do that instead, I think you guys put in the chat, would you guys want Technical Tuesday or listening to the Google call? Which one would you like more? I think I already know what you guys are going to say. But if you want TT, then maybe we don't need to listen to Google's call. I mean, the call is going to be pretty boring anyway, dude. It's just going to be Sundar being Sundar, right? It's not like there's going to be anything that different. I don't think there's going to be anything that exciting on the call. I'll see. I'll talk with Jason. I'll see what he thinks. He might have to listen to the call as well. He might be live trading it. So I'll see what he thinks, and then we'll figure it out. We can't do both. We can't do both because then Technical Tuesday would start at 6 p.m. and it's just he has to leave by 7. So we would have to pick one or the other. The thing is, I think if we do Technical Tuesday, we will still have AMD, Snapchat, Google, Chipotle, very important one, from like 3:45 to 4:25. So we do have a good 35 minutes of just earnings. And then at 4:30, we can start Technical Tuesday for the next 2 hours. Versus listening to Google at 4:30, where they're just going to be repeating results, right? Like there's not going to be anything that different. So I'll talk to Jason. I'll talk to Jason and we'll figure it out. All right, word of the day. I missed word of the day yesterday, and a lot of you guys got mad at me. I'm sorry. Word of the day is coin.
Coin.
Did you guys hear that?
Coin.
Yeah, coin. If I didn't see the pronunciation, I would have said Q-yoin. I promise you, dude. If I didn't see the K-O-I-N right there, I promise I would have said Q-yoin. I would have said it. 100%. I would have said it. I would not have pronounced the Q and the U as a K. To secure or raise with a wedge, keystone, or cornerstone. To coin the gazebo and make it level, the workers used planks and other pieces of scrap wood. The centerpiece of the garden was the stone archway that the designer coined with an intricately carved keystone. Okay, given I am very bad with my hands when it comes to, I can talk. I can't really build stuff. You tell me to build a tent, I'll be there for 5 days. I can't build a tent. I'm a little embarrassed to say that as a man. I'm not good. I joke about loving to be at Home Depot. Dude, I hate being at Home Depot. I don't even know where's the wood at Home Depot. So you'll never see me coining anything, quite frankly. Although last month I fixed our vacuum and my mom, she started clapping her hands and she was making fun of me because I never fix anything because I suck at fixing stuff. But I fixed that damn vacuum and I was pretty proud. I was pretty damn proud. So there you go. That's what I got. Bitcoin. Yes, that's the word of the day. Bitcoin. We also have AMD after the bell. So AMD, Google, Snapchat, and then Chipotle. That will be the earnings today. Very, very big earnings that we have to look at. We also have FICO. We have Mondelez. We have Enphase. That's a big one. And then we have AMD, Snapchat, Google, and Chipotle. So some big earnings today after the bell. You don't build a tent, you send it up. See, this is exactly why. So I don't even know the vocabulary on how to set up a tent. Dude, fix the vacuum was serious, man. There was something stuck in there. I had to like take the thing out. I had to, all right, now granted, I was watching a YouTube video the whole time, trying to just follow but it was, I got it done. I got it done. And she was really proud of me because usually I cannot get that done. Not at all. The plug, all right, Eric, you're being funny. The plug, first of all, it's a wireless, it's a Dyson, bro. There's no plug. It's not about that. Even though it's pretty funny because that I would probably mess up if the plug was out of the wall and then I realized, oh, it's just the plug. But no, it was just like a quarter that was stuck in it, but it was so hard to find the quarter that was stuck. And I figured it out. It took me a YouTube video, but I figured it out. All right, that's it. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I will be back at 2:30 for the stream for David Sachs, and that'll probably bleed into the market close. Maybe. Should we even do that, dude? Should we stream David Sachs? I think maybe we don't, guys. It doesn't make any sense. There's no point of doing that streaming into because it's probably going to be 15 minutes max, and then we're just going to be waiting for earnings at that point. So I think we're not going to do that stream. I'll get the highlights and it'll be on Twitter. So follow me on Twitter. It's in the description. You guys will see all the highlights there. We'll play the video during the market close, but it doesn't make sense to do a stream that early because it's just like, it's going to be less. It's going to be maybe 10 minutes, dude. It's not going to be like an hour-long press conference. At least I don't think so. So I'll be back at 3:45. All right, that's it. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate you guys. The video on explaining call options, let me link it in the chat. A lot of people have been asking for this. Let me link it right here. Also, mods, if you could copy this link and just keep it with you. So if you ever see this question, you can link it right here because I know a lot of people have been asking for this video. I'm going to put it right here in the chat. And if you want the options video, this is what it is. It's 3 hours on the most basic explanation of options that I think is out there. And so this video right here, you can access to see that video. All right. Thank you, everybody. Where's Palantir? 102.8. Congrats. It's a hell of a day, a hell of a company, and a hell of a journey. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate you guys. We'll be back for Google earnings after the bell. Bye, everybody. See you guys in a bit.